My sister erased my alarm, hid my keys, and ruined my Harvard shot. 10 years later, I'm head of surgery there, and she needed me to save her life. My sister pretended to be me when she contacted the interview site to cancel, erased my alarm, and concealed my car keys. Around 8:30 a.m., I woke up. Harvard Medical School called me 14 times and wanted to know why I hadn't arrived for my 7:30 a.m. interview. I had worked for 4 years to prepare for this interview, which would decide whether or not I was accepted into one of the top medical schools in the nation. I had left my phone on my nightstand, but it was plugged in across the room. I had fully switched off my alarm. When I picked it up, I noticed the voicemails, missed calls, and the urgent email from the admissions office. I listened to the first voicemail with trembling palms. The voice of a professional woman, a little worried. "This is Dr. Sarah Bennett from Harvard Admissions, Miss Turner. You were supposed to show up for your interview at 7:30 a.m. today, but you haven't. In the event of an emergency, kindly give us a call back right away to reschedule." 25 minutes later, the second voicemail was less kind. More annoyance from the same woman. "Now, Miss Turner, someone posing as you has called to inform us that you have decided not to continue your studies at Harvard. To make sure information is correct, we need you to get in touch with us personally." The admissions director left the third voicemail. "We're canceling your interview, Miss Turner. At 8 a.m. this morning, we received a call. Posing as you and saying you've chosen to go after other chances. You must get in touch with us within an hour and provide an explanation if this was not you. If not, we're going to proceed with other applicants." I phoned back right away, received voicemail, and frantically left a message saying that something was wrong because I had never called or canceled. 2 additional attempts yielded no response. I phoned the main office, sent emails, and eventually spoke with an assistant who informed me that the admissions committee had already filled my spot and was moving on. My phone number had sent them a very obvious call. They couldn't do anything with my phone number until I could show it wasn't me. I looked at my call history. At 8 a.m., nothing is leaving for Harvard. However, my phone wasn't on my nightstand when I woke up. It was across the room. My sister Sophia was in the kitchen brewing coffee when I came downstairs. She was 28 years old, 2 years my senior, and had been accepted to medical school 3 years prior on her first attempt. She was at the top of her class, completing her 3rd year at a separate program, and fulfilling every wish our parents had ever had. When I walked in, she glanced up and grinned. "You're up late, morning. You had that interview, didn't you?" Everything fell into place. My vehicle keys were gone from the rack by the entrance, where I normally put them. The phone had relocated across the room, and the alarm had been erased. During my gap year, I worked as an EMT and lived at home to save money. 2 months ago, Sophia returned home, stating that she wanted to save money before applying for residence because her apartment lease had finished. Having both girls back under one roof had delighted our parents. I said, "What did you do?" I spoke in a steady, icy tone. She sipped her coffee. "What are you discussing?" "You canceled my interview. You called them pretending to be me." "That's insane. Why would I do that?" Her gaze briefly wavered before she said, "Because you've spent 3 years being the golden child, and you couldn't stand me getting into a better program than yours." I witnessed it. Contentment. This was what she intended to accomplish. There was no miscommunication or accident here. She had purposefully ruined the most significant interview of my life. Her words, "You're being paranoid. Maybe you just overslept, and you're looking for someone to blame." My alarm was deleted. My phone was moved. My car keys are missing. And someone called for my phone number to cancel. Maybe you did it in your sleep. You've always been an anxious mess before a big event. Remember when you had that panic attack before the MCAT? As she stood in our parents' kitchen sipping coffee, she was lying to me about ruining my whole future. I snatched up my phone, opened the call log, and thrust it in her face. "There's no outgoing call at 8 o'clock, but they said someone called from my number. How did you do it?" "I have no idea what you're talking about, but honestly, Emily, this victim mentality is exactly why you're not getting into top programs. You need to take responsibility for your own failures." I felt like screaming and grabbing her coffee to hurl it against the wall. Rather, I returned upstairs, secured my door, and made another call to Harvard. I spoke with Dr. Bennett personally this time. I clarified that I had never canceled, that someone had called posing as me, and that at the time, my phone was showing no outgoing calls. She attentively listened before responding. "Miss Turner, the person who called knew specific details about your application, your undergraduate institution, your MCAT score, your research experience. This wasn't a random prank. It was my sister. She has access to all that information. We live in the same house. Can you prove it was her? No, but I can prove it wasn't me. My phone has no call log. Someone must have used a spoofing app or called from a different phone. Dr. Bennett let out a sigh. Even if that's true, we've already moved your slot to another candidate. Our interview season is nearly complete. I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do this cycle. Thus, there are no repercussions when my sister ruins my opportunity to attend my ideal school. Although I can see your aggravation, this is a family concern, rather than an admissions issue in the absence of hard evidence. Next cycle, you are invited to reapply. She ended the call. My sister couldn't take me succeeding, so I sat on my bed and stared at the wall, trying to comprehend that 4 years of hard work had suddenly vanished. I had interviews at 8 o'clock after submitting applications to 10 other medical schools. On the morning of each of my interviews, Sophia unexpectedly became extremely busy. I began hiding my vehicle keys in my bed, setting 5 alarms, and sleeping with my phone under my pillow. She was not someone I trusted with anything pertaining to my applications. Although they were aware of the stress, my parents didn't get it. They stated I was exaggerating, and that Sophia would never do such a thing when I attempted to describe what she had done, that I could have slept in too late and was humiliated and trying to find someone to blame. There was nothing their golden child could do wrong. I simply couldn't get my life together as the younger daughter. I had 5 interviews and 2 of them went nicely. 1 didn't go well since I couldn't concentrate due to my sabotage paranoia. 2 were mediocre. I was turned down by 3 colleges and placed on a wait list at 2. Sophia received the residence of her choice. She had a celebratory supper hosted by my parents. She gave me this little, contented grin that no one else could see as I sat there grinning as they celebrated her achievement. I reapplied to medical schools and worked as an EMT for the next year. I was given my own apartment this time, a little studio that I could hardly afford. I was no longer going to live with her in that house. I wasn't going to give her another chance to ruin my future. I received 8 interviews after submitting 13 applications, and I was accepted into 2 programs. One was a reputable, well-established public university, but none of them were Harvard. That September, I agreed and got started. Sophia began her neurosurgery residency at a prominent Boston hospital the same year. She made my parents very pleased. She was training to operate on the brain. They had never heard of the state school I was attending. Medical school was harsh. I considered giving it up every day. The amount of work was overwhelming. It was a fierce competition. Everyone in my class appeared to be more intelligent, well-prepared and gifted by nature. To stay up, I studied twice as hard as everyone else. I didn't pass my first anatomy test. Barely made it through pharmacology, stayed in the library till 3 in the morning, learning drug interactions and routes by heart. However, I possessed something that the other pupils did not: fury. I was furious with my sister for what she had done. Every time I felt like giving up, I imagined her grinning at that dinner table, erasing my alert and taking my Harvard interview with no repercussions. When fatigue and self-doubt told me to quit, that anger kept me going. Since cardiothoracic surgery is the most difficult surgical specialty with the longest training, the greatest stakes, and the most grueling hours, I chose to specialize in it. Sophia had decided on neurosurgery because of its prestige. I wanted to outperform her in something she couldn't do, so I went with cardiothoracic. We began clinical rotations in our 3rd year of medical school. I put in as many extra hours as I could, stayed late to see surgeries and volunteered for every surgery. Attendees took note. Following a particularly challenging case, one of them, cardiothoracic surgeon Dr. Jonathan Scott, drew me aside. "You've been in the O more than any other medical student this year. Why?" "Because I love it and I want to be the best." He looked at me for a while. "Surgery isn't about being the best. It's about being good enough to save lives when it matters." "Then I want to be good enough that I never lose a patient because I wasn't skilled enough." Slowly, he nodded. "You've got the drive. Now you need the precision. Come observe my cases. I'll teach you what I can." I was mentored by Dr. Scott. Despite his harshness and demands, he recognized something in me. He gave me more freedom than most medical students do. During operations, ask questions, seal incisions, and fold retractor. He challenged me to think more quickly, move more accurately, and comprehend not just what we were doing, but also why. I placed in the top 10% of my class when I graduated from medical school. Respectable, but not the best. Applied to residencies and received interviews from 6 programs. Matriculated at a cardiothoracic surgery, reputable Philadelphia program. Although not the best, it is renowned for turning forth top-notch surgeons. In the same year, Sophia completed her residency in neurosurgery. She secured a position at a prestigious Boston hospital, earning twice as much as I would as a resident. For her white coat ceremony, my parents took a plane. Since it was the same weekend and they had already committed to hers, they chose not to attend mine. It was terrible to be a resident. 90-hour work weeks, 12, 14 and 16-hour operations, and attendants who yelled at you for even the slightest error. Patients who passed away even though we did everything correctly. I dropped more weight than was good for me. Ceased getting more than 4 hours of sleep per night. Lived in a condition of adrenaline and weariness all the time. However, I became better, quicker, and more accurate. I was the resident attending requested for challenging patients by my 3rd year. The one who remained composed when things went wrong in the one they trusted with challenging dissections. I was the most naturally gifted surgical resident that Dr. Scott, who had relocated to Philadelphia and was now an attending at my hospital, had trained in 20 years. I didn't think he was real. I was aware that I lacked innate skill. I had developed all of my skills by practice, anger, and a will to settle for anything less than great. I was the head resident in my 5th year of residency. The person who was summoned for every emergency, every complication, and every patient circling the drain at 3 in the morning, as well as the person in charge of scheduling, supervising the other residents, and operating the service. I had hardly an apartment anymore, just a space to store clothing and take the odd shower, and I lived in a hospital. In Boston, Sophia was doing quite well. My parents claimed that she was dating a prominent lawyer, delivering speeches at conferences, and having her work published in prestigious publications. For her, everything was ideal. Other than forced conversations during unavoidable family holidays, I hadn't talked to her in 5 years. She had never shown regret or even admitted her mistake. My parents believed I had nothing to be angry about. I was admitted to Mass General's cardiothoracic surgery fellowship in Boston following my residency. Additional 2 years of training under the nation's top surgeons. Sophia remained in Boston. I kept my move there a secret from her. The camaraderie was tremendous. More responsibilities, more complicated situations. The hearts I operated on were declared inoperable by previous surgeons. Doing repairs, transplants, and other operations requiring minuscule accuracy. I lost clients. When doing heart surgery, it is unavoidable. I did, however, preserve more than I lost. Compared to the other guys, I had a better success rate. Attendees took note. The chairman of the heart surgery department, Dr. David Miller, began assigning me situations that other fellows weren't prepared for. My mother called me a year into my fellowship. She was in tears. At work, Sophia had passed out. They hurried her to the emergency room due to a brain aneurysm. She required urgent surgery. I was emotionless, only detached and logical. Which hospital? Mass General. They're prepping her for surgery now. Can you come? I'm already at Mass General. I'll find out what's happening. After hanging up, I proceeded to the operating room. I located Sophia's chart. It was a huge, irregular, and troublesome aneurysm. High chance of rupture when doing surgery. High chance of mortality or stroke. One of the top neurosurgeons in the department, Dr. Mark Evans, was assigned to her case, but he was engaged in another lengthy procedure. Now they needed someone to run it. The attending neurosurgeon inquired about availability. I said, then thought, I can do it. After examining me, Dr. Scott said, "You're cardiac, not neuro. I've observed enough neuro cases. I know the anatomy, and she's my sister." There was silence in the room. "Your sister?" "Yes. And if she dies while we're waiting for Evans to finish, that's on us." Dr. Scott looked at me for a while. "Can you be objective?" "I'm always objective." That wasn't totally accurate. However, I was able to distinguish between medical necessity and emotional impulses. He gave a nod. "Then scrub in. I'll supervise." I used hands that didn't tremble to get ready for surgery. With her skull shaved and marked for surgery, Sophia lay on the table unconscious. She was unaware that I was going to slit her brain. I was guided through it by Dr. Scott. The dangers, the perspectives, the strategy. We cautiously opened her head and found the aneurysm. The scans didn't reveal how bad it was. Bigger, with flimsy walls that may burst at any time. She would either bleed into her brain or have a stroke if she made a mistake. I worked with a level of accuracy I was unaware of. Every motion was regulated, and every clip was positioned precisely. I hardly needed Dr. Scott's guidance. I could sense the difference between vessels that were damaged and healthy tissue. May view the blood flow's design as a map. I inserted the last clip 6 hours into the procedure. They secured the aneurysm. Blood flow was securely redirected. No blood, no rupture. Sophia would live. I left the when we closed her up. In the waiting area were my parents. When they noticed that I was wearing surgical scrubs, they stood. My mom inquired, "How is she?" "Stable. The surgery went well. She'll need monitoring, but she should make a full recovery." With relief, my mother fell into my father. "Thank God." "Who was the surgeon?" "We need to thank them." My surgical cap came off. "I was the surgeon." They gazed at me. "You? But you're not a neurosurgeon." "I'm a surgical fellow. I know enough." And I was available when she needed someone immediately. There was something complex about my father's face. "You operated on your sister?" "Yes, but you two haven't spoken in 5 years." "You hate her." I considered that. About the 5 years of silence, the stolen interview, and the erased alarm. "I don't hate her. I just don't trust her. But she needed surgery, and I was capable of doing it. So I did." My mom broke down in tears. "Thank you. Thank you for saving her." I gave a nod and turned to go. Even if I had spared her life, everything she had done to me still remained. After 3 days, Sophia awoke. I wasn't present when it took place. I spent 9 hours in another surgery, this time for a heart transplant. She was awake and spoke to my parents by the time I was done. That night, I dropped by her room. She appeared frail and pale, but she was still alive, sitting up in bed with bandages over her head. Her face altered as she noticed me standing in the doorway. Shock followed by recognition. "Emily." "Hey." I remained in the entrance. Didn't approach. "They said you did my surgery." "I did." "Why?" "Because you needed one, and I was available." She lowered her gaze to her hands. "I could have died." "Yes." "The aneurysm was in a bad location, but I placed the clips correctly and rerouted blood flow. You'll be fine." "I don't understand." "After everything, why would you help me?" I entered the room and shut the door after myself. "You want to talk about everything? Okay, let's talk about it." She became quite motionless. "You sabotaged my Harvard interview, deleted my alarm, hid my keys, called pretending to be me to cancel. You destroyed my chance at my top choice school because you couldn't handle me being better than you." "Emily, I'm not done. You did it and got away with it. Our parents didn't think I was telling the truth. You never said sorry. You simply watched me suffer for 5 years while you were successful in everything." I took a step toward her bed. "Here's what you didn't comprehend though. I was improved by your sabotage of me. Every hour you were asleep, I was researching. I offered to do every procedure while you were at ease. Because I refused to be anything other than exceptional, I was able to save every patient. That resulted from your actions." Sophia was weeping now, her face streaming with silent sobs. "You made me into a surgeon who could save your life when you needed it. So yeah. I operated on you. Not because I forgave you. Not because we're sisters. But because I'm a surgeon and you needed surgery. And I'm good enough now that I could do it right." I turned to go. Before I got to the door, she started talking. "I'm sorry." I halted, but I didn't look back. She went on to say, "I was jealous. You were always more intelligent and motivated than I was. I put a lot of effort into being the greatest, and you just comprehended everything. I freaked out when you got that Harvard interview. I reasoned that everyone would realize you were superior to me if you went there. I sabotaged you, and I've been regretting it ever since. I knew I was to blame after seeing you suffer. However, I was too arrogant to acknowledge it. You'll be all right, I told myself. You'll get accepted to another school. However, you weren't okay, and because of my own insecurities, I betrayed your confidence in our relationship. I pivoted. You're correct. You did. And it's not resolved by your apologies. You're my sister, but I understand. And even though I detest what you did, I wasn't going to let you die when you required surgery." Sophia dabbed at her face. "Thank you for saving my life, even though I didn't deserve it. No one should have to pass away from an aneurysm. Not even you. We didn't start dating again right once, and I didn't forgive her simply because she said she was sorry, but something changed when she finally acknowledged the harm and accepted what she had done. It didn't make the 5 years of suffering go away, but it was something." I left her room and returned to work. After her operation, Sophia fully healed, returned to work 3 months later and then departed Boston to take a position in California. Before she went, she texted me. "I'm happy that you outperformed me as a surgeon. You deserved it. After finishing my fellowship at the top of my class, I received an offer to work as an attending cardiac surgeon at Mass General, the same hospital where I had operated on my sister and demonstrated my ability to put professional need ahead of personal sentiments. This time, both of my parents attended my white coat ceremony and expressed their regret for not believing me about the Harvard interview, for blindly supporting Sophia, and for failing to see the amount of effort I had put in to get here. At my ceremony, Dr. Scott spoke about my precision, my dedication, and my ability to handle complex cases that other surgeons avoided. He said that I was one of the most talented cardiac surgeons he had trained in 30 years. I accepted their apology, but I kept in mind that I had come this far despite, not because of, them. He was unaware of Sophia's efforts to undermine me, the erased alarm, or the stolen interview. He simply recognized my extraordinary ability to save lives. After 3 years of attending, I published a paper on a novel method of fixing complicated heart valve defects, which was picked up by major journals. I began receiving invitations to speak at conferences, and hospitals began hiring me for leadership roles. I remained at Mass General and concentrated on developing a program for high-risk cardiac patients, those that other surgeons said were too far gone. I became known for taking cases that seemed hopeless and somehow bringing patients through, and I had one of the highest success rates in the nation. Sophia and I now speak occasionally, not frequently, but occasionally. My parents tried to make up for years of favoritism by attending my lectures, asking about my research, and telling their friends about their daughter, the cardiac surgeon. She called on birthdays and texted about cases she found interesting. We weren't close, and probably never would be, but we weren't enemies either. She had ruined something between us that couldn't be completely fixed, but we'd managed to survive together. 10 years after Sophia ruined my Harvard interview, I received a call from Harvard, and Dr. Bennett, the admissions director who told me there was nothing she could do, was now the chair of their surgery department. It felt hollow at times, as if they only valued me now that I had achieved visible success. But I accepted it because harboring resentment took energy I needed for surgery. Why me? They wanted me to come lead their new cardiac surgery program, she stated. I inquired. Because of your outstanding success rate and the way your study is changing the way we handle complicated valve repairs, you'd fit right in. You rejected my application 10 years ago. A pause occurred. I recall. You said your interview was ruined by your sister. She did. Years later, she finally acknowledged it. One more pause. Then I owe you an apology and a job offer if you're interested. After giving it some thought, I realized that the school that had turned me down was now offering me a leadership role, and that the interview Sophia had stolen had helped me become better than I would have been if I had been accepted the first time. I'm interested, but I have conditions. After 3 weeks of negotiations, Harvard agreed to all of my demands, including autonomy over my program, research funds, and the freedom to teach residents how I saw fit. I took the job, relocated to Baltimore, and began developing a heart surgery program that concentrated on the patients whom everyone else had rejected. When I was asked to speak at a national surgery conference 6 months into my new position on the subject of overcoming challenges in surgical training, I nearly rejected. Since I'm not very good at public speaking, but my former mentor Dr. Scott persuaded me to accept. There were hundreds of surgeons, residents, and medical students in the lecture hall. I stood at the podium and told them my story, which was utterly silent, about how I applied to medical school and got my top interview, about how my sister deleted my alarm, hidden my keys, and called to cancel while I was asleep, and about waking up to missed calls and dashed hopes. I told them about my sister's aneurysm and the decision to operate despite everything she had done, about being rejected, reapplying, choosing cardiothoracic surgery out of rage, and about working twice as hard as everyone else to prove I deserved to be there. Because she was worried that I would surpass her, she ruined my interview. And you know what? I've improved. Her actions forced me to put in more effort than I otherwise would have, not because I'm inherently more gifted. She unintentionally produced the surgeon who saved her life while attempting to ruin my future. Applause broke out throughout the room. There was a 2-minute standing ovation. Following the talk, dozens of people approached me to share their personal stories of being betrayed by family members, having parents who didn't believe in them, having siblings who competed instead of supporting them, or being told they weren't good enough as medical students. They said it gave them hope to hear that someone had overcome such betrayal and still succeeded. I had a ringing phone that night. I nearly didn't respond, Sophia, but something compelled me to answer. I watched your lecture, she said. Someone posted it online. I waited. All of your statements were accurate. I attempted to ruin your future, and as a result, you outperformed me. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I've mentioned it before. But until I heard you share that tale with a group of strangers, I don't believe I truly realized what I got from you. I took your ideal school away from you and made you start over, and for some reason, you were still more successful than I was. I didn't succeed despite you. I succeeded because I refused to let what you did define me. I understand, but you have the right to be upset about it. You are free to despise me. I'm not hostile toward you. I just do not trust you, and I doubt that I ever will. She remained silent for a while. That's reasonable. I deserved that. It wasn't precisely closure, but it was recognition, and we hung up after a few more minutes of conversation. My program at Harvard expanded, and within 3 years we were ranked among the best cardiac surgery programs in the nation. I trained residents who later became department chairs at other hospitals, and I published papers that changed surgical protocols across the country. She recognized what she had done, and I had moved past allowing it to control me. My patients, those who everyone claimed were too dangerous, too complicated, or too ill, survived at rates that attracted the attention of other programs. I received honors, invitations to join the editorial boards of prestigious journals, and offers to chair departments at hospitals throughout the nation. Since Harvard was the school that had rejected me and I was now improving it, I stayed because I had created something significant there. I received a letter from the medical school 15 years after the ruined interview, stating that they wanted to establish an endowment scholarship in my name for students who had overcome major obstacles to become doctors. Students like me had been battling against unsupportive families, rebuilding after setbacks, and persevering in the face of all the reasons to give up. We called it the Second Chance Scholarship because sometimes the route you didn't select brings you to a better place than you could have ever dreamed of. I said yes, and put my own money into the fund. When Sophia learned about the scholarship, she called. "That is amazing. You're assisting those who are similar to you and us." "You overcame obstacles too," I corrected. "You were one of them, but you're no longer one of them. I was your hurdle, but they were different ones." She made a sound that was a mix of relief and sadness as she laughed. "When did you become so grown up?" "When I stopped letting what you did matter more than what I accomplished." After that we spoke more frequently, not always, but enough that I was invited to her wedding. She was among the first individuals to purchase my books on advanced cardiac surgical procedures. We would never have the connection we should have because of the damage and years we had lost, but we did have something in common. An awareness that we had both made errors and had moved past them. When my textbook was out, my parents had a dinner party. There were 2 daughters there, both successful in their careers, and my father made a toast about how proud he was of his surgeon daughters. I reflected on the years he had not trusted me, the times he had blindly accepted Sophia's version of events, but I also imagined him attending my lectures now, reading my papers, and attempting to comprehend my work. "To my daughters," he added, lifting his glass. "Both of whom demonstrated that willpower is more important than luck." We drank to that. To resolve, to becoming individuals our younger selves wouldn't recognize. To rebuilding lives from the rubble of treachery and sabotage. I caught Sophia's eye across the table, and she offered me a faint grin in return, not the same smirk from years before, but something sincere. "I'm the head of cardiac surgery at Harvard, 20 years after the erased alarm, and I oversee a school that prepares the next generation of surgeons. I operate on hearts that other surgeons believe cannot be repaired, and I educate residents that tough is simply another term for impossible. When students inquire about how I got here or how I developed this career, I tell them the truth. My sister ruined my medical school interview, erased my alarm, concealed my keys, and robbed me of my opportunity to attend my dream school. She attempted to ruin my future because she was worried that I would surpass her, but in the process, she inspired me to become exceptional. I tell them about operating on Sophia's aneurysm, about saving the life of the person who had attempted to destroy mine, about choosing to be a surgeon rather than a victim, and that sometimes the people who hurt you the most teach you the most important lessons. I also tell them that betrayal can be fuel if you're angry and stubborn enough to not let it break you. Some of them have their own Sophias, their own saboteurs, and some of them comprehend. I teach those pupils that the greatest response to betrayal is to live well, and that the finest retaliation is to become so successful that those who attempted to stop you must see your accomplishment. We now speak a few times a year. Sophia is a successful neurosurgeon who owns her own clinic in California. She is recognized and skilled in her field, albeit not as motivated as I am. I sometimes wonder what might have happened if I had allowed someone else to operate on her aneurysm, if I had stepped back and let Dr. Evans handle it after he finished his other surgery, if I had chosen vengeance over medicine, but that was never really a choice. Because I'm a surgeon before I'm a betrayed sister. She never had another health crisis, and she never required another surgery. Because it's more important to save lives than to settle scores. I stand at the front of the room and think about the 23-year-old me. My name is now on the Emily Turner Surgical Education Center, the Harvard lecture hall where I teach. It is supported by my speaking fees and textbook royalties, and students come in every week to learn from me. That version of myself had no idea she'd end up here, teaching at the school that turned her down, running the program she wasn't good enough to attend, saving lives with hands that learned precision from sheer willpower. She was devastated and betrayed, watching her future vanish because someone she trusted had sabotaged her. Every surgery I do, every life I save, every student I train. That's proof that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. My sister attempted to destroy me, but instead she made me invincible. Last year, Sophia and I met up at a conference, drank coffee in between sessions, and discussed our lives, professions, and the gap between our former selves and current selves. She asked whether I had ever really forgiven her, and I told her that I had, but forgiveness wasn't the proper word. She did, however, alter the course of my life, making me more determined, harder, and less trusting. Those were facts to be accepted, not things to be forgiven. In a strange sense, though, I'm thankful that you pushed me out, since I doubt I would have pushed this hard otherwise. Slowly, she nodded. I created my own monster. No, you produced a surgeon skilled enough to preserve your life in a time of need. It isn't a monster. That's just someone who refused to let you win. We finished our coffee and walked to separate sessions, and as I watched her leave, I felt nothing. No animosity, no wrath, no anguish lingered, just the peaceful contentment that comes from knowing that I had created a life that she couldn't harm, that all I had accomplished had been built on the worst thing she had ever done to me. I became a surgeon because my sister ruined my medical school interview, and I was good enough to rescue her, not because she deserved it, but because I had developed the ability to save others, even those who attempted to destroy me. The true form of retaliation is not hurting them back, but mastering your art to the point where you surpass their treachery completely, and become absolutely exceptional in spite of all the challenges they put in your way. I became the greatest in my industry because she attempted to make me fail, and every day I work and save lives is evidence that she didn't succeed. My sister begged me to carry her baby. When I refused, her husband harassed me, non-stop, until I was forced to call the cops. I, a 26-year-old female, need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do anymore. My older sister, Rachel, 30, has been married to her husband Ethan for 5 years. I've been with my partner, Jackson, for approximately 3 years. Rachel and I were always close growing up. Our mother left when I was 4 and Rachel was 8. Charles raised us alone while working 2 jobs. Lauren helped raise me in a variety of ways. She would make sure I finished my schoolwork, packed my lunch, and braided my hair before school. We shared a room till high school. She was more than a sister to me. We went separate roads, however. Lauren met Ethan in college, and they married shortly after graduation. She never completed her degree. She worked as a receptionist for around 6 months before Ethan persuaded her to resign. He's a well-paid engineer, and she's been living at home ever since. They purchased a home in the suburbs. She spends her time beautifying it, attending yoga lessons, and visiting friends for lunch. That type of existence. I headed in a different path. I completed college and got a job in marketing. I rent an apartment in the city with a roommate. I travel whenever I can. I enjoy my independence. Jackson and I have spoken about moving in together, but we are taking things slowly. Lauren has always desired babies. When we were younger, Mother had a complete strategy. She would show me journals in which she had penned baby names. She had magazine cutouts of nursery decor tacked to the wall. She mentioned having at least 3 children, perhaps 4. It was always her dream. I've never felt that way. Kids never appealed to me. I prefer my nephew than my cousin, but I'm content to give him back at the end of the day. The prospect of becoming pregnant, giving birth, and raising a child does not appeal to me. I have known this about myself for a long time. Lauren and Ethan began trying for a baby almost 4 years ago. Lauren's statements hinted to the difficulty of the situation. When she saw a pregnant lady, she would stop talking. She stopped attending baby showers. I did not press her to talk about it. She eventually informed me last year that they were going through treatments. They attempted IVF twice. Both attempts failed. They had spent more than $45,000. Insurance didn't cover the majority of it. Ethan's parents assisted with some of the costs. The whole situation was taking its toll on them. Rachel stopped by my flat on a Tuesday evening around 7 weeks ago. Jackson was working late. We ordered Chinese cuisine and watched a cookery program. She appeared worried the entire time. She continued plucking at her noodles. Finally, she turned down the TV sound and explained that she needed to ask me something urgent. She asked whether I would consider becoming their surrogate. I said nothing at first. I simply gazed at her. She continued to speak, stating that the doctor had told her that her uterus had a problem, such as scarring. She could lay eggs but not carry a pregnancy. They had already looked into surrogacy companies, but the costs were exorbitant, exceeding $95,000. They couldn't afford IVF after spending so much money on it. She then added that because we are sisters, it would be ideal. The baby would continue to be her and Ethan's biological child. They only need me to carry it. 9 months is all. I told her no. I tried to be gentle with it. I confessed that I had never wanted to get pregnant. The pregnancy itself worries me. That 9 months is more than just 9 months. It's gaining weight, struggling with morning sickness, being unable to function effectively, and finally labor and delivery. I told her that I loved her, but I couldn't do this. She asked why not. I informed her that I had always been open about my desire to avoid having children or becoming pregnant. She stated that this was different. I would not be keeping the baby. I'd just be assisting her. I advised they save for a professional surrogate or consider adoption. She was unhappy about it. She stated that she didn't want to adopt. She wanted to have a biological child. She wanted Ethan to see his child and not raise someone else's child. Then she began weeping. She stated this after all she'd been through, including needles, operations and disappointments. She assumed I, of all people, would understand. She said that family helps family. She reminded me of how many times she had assisted me. When I needed money for college textbooks, when I had my appendix removed and she stayed at the hospital, and when my car broke down and she drove an hour to pick me up, she accused me of being selfish. That 9 months of my existence was little compared to her entire goal of becoming a mother. I could simply take some time off from work. That Jackson would comprehend that it was only carrying a kid, not parenting it. I remained strong and answered no again. She departed without eating her meal. She didn't talk to me for 2 weeks thereafter. There are no texts, phone calls, or anything. Finally, she texted me, stating she was disappointed with me but still loved me. I replied back saying I loved her too. Then, 4 weeks after that chat, she began giving me images from our childhood, screenshots of text conversations in which I told her I loved her, and photos of us at family occasions. Each one had a letter pleading with me to reconsider, questioning how I could forsake her when she needed me the most. Jackson instructed me to block her, but I couldn't do so. She's my sister. I contacted Charles to ask whether he knew what was going on. He groaned and explained that Lauren had contacted him, weeping over it. He said he remained out of it because it was not his position to tell me what to do with my body, but I could sense he wanted me to help her. The texts kept arriving. Lauren gave me photographs of failed pregnancy tests. She provided me screenshots of her interactions with Ethan, where he mentioned giving up on having children. She sent me a video of herself weeping, stating she didn't understand why I hated her so much. I don't detest her. I just cannot do what she is asking. Last week she returned to my flat. Jackson answered the door. She rushed past him to find me in the bedroom. She had a crazy expression in her eyes. She inquired as to whether I had given it any further thought. I stated that my response was still no. That's when she completely lost it. She began shrieking that I was damaging her marriage, that Ethan was moving away from her due to the baby predicament. His relatives continued making comments about how broken she was. That this was all my responsibility since I could have fixed it, but I chose not to. She took a framed photo of us from my dresser and threw it against the wall. The glass cracked. Jackson ran in and told her she had to go. She went on him, saying he had no right to keep us apart because we were sisters. Jackson literally stood between us and urged her to leave. She eventually departed, but not before claiming she would never forgive me for this. That was 6 days ago. Since then, I've received about 35 text messages from her. Charles called and stated Lauren had informed him I had attacked her in my flat, that Jackson had threatened her. None of this is true, but Charles is now unhappy with me for allegedly provoking drama. Ethan emailed me yesterday. It was lengthy. He mentioned how difficult this has been for Lauren, how she sobs every night, how she's on medicine for depression, and how their marriage is disintegrating. He stated, "I'm the only one who can save their family." He also said, "If I truly loved my sister, I'd do this one thing for her." I gave him the email. He said Ethan was manipulating me, that this whole situation was insane, and that no one could compel me to become pregnant. But I keep thinking of Lauren. About how Grandma raised me after Mom departed. About how she has always been present. About how this is her sole dream in life, and I can make it a reality. Jackson says if I even contemplate it, he isn't sure he can stay with me. He claims that witnessing them put pressure on me like this makes him sick. He says it's my decision, but he can't see me going through something I don't want just because they're guilting me into it. I haven't slept well in days. My phone will not quit vibrating. Lauren emailed me a snapshot this morning of her childhood notebook, where she drew sketches of her future children. I do not know what to do. Part of me wants to just agree to put an end to it all, but another part of me knows that's not right. I shouldn't have to give up my body and 9 months of my life to solve someone else's issues. Am I truly being selfish here? Should I do this simply for her? Update 1. It's been 4 weeks since my first post. I need to give you all an update since things have grown considerably worse. First and foremost, I'd want to thank everyone who left comments. Most of you said I was correct to refuse and that I was being misled. A couple of you shared your surrogacy experiences and emphasized how tough it is. One individual pointed out that I couldn't legally be a surrogate because I'd never had a kid before. I searched this up, and you were correct. In my state, surrogates must have successfully carried at least one pregnancy to term. Lauren would have understood this if she had done her homework correctly. That aroused my suspicion, so I phoned Lauren and asked her directly whether she knew about this rule. She did not respond, but Ethan phoned me back an hour later. He questioned why I was inquiring about legal requirements. I told him what I had learnt. There was a prolonged pause. Then he stated they had already devised a workaround. A workaround. I inquired what that meant. He stated that they had located a reproductive clinic 3 hours away that specializes in non-traditional surrogacy options. He indicated we wouldn't go via the usual methods. Instead, Rachel and I would travel together to the initial visit. I would pretend to be Lauren. Once pregnant, I'd see my own OBGYN, and we'd disclose that it was a surrogacy arrangement after the fact. I inquired whether that was legal. He described it as a gray area, but people do it all the time. He made it appear casual, as if it were no big thing to commit fraud and lie to medical experts. I informed him that I was not going to breach the law. That I had already said no. And that the conversation was done. He became silent. Then he uttered something that made my blood turn cold. He claimed Lauren had already informed his family that I had agreed to be their surrogate, that his parents were arranging a celebratory meal, and that they had begun informing acquaintances that they would be grandparents soon. I hung up with him. I quickly contacted Lauren. She responded this time. I questioned why she told others I was going to be their surrogate when I hadn't consented. She began weeping. She stated she had notified them ahead of time because she was confident I would come around. She said that she couldn't take anything back, now. She asked me to simply go along with it. I told her no. I stated I was done with this scenario and that she needed to tell everyone the truth. She kept weeping, claiming she couldn't. That Ethan's family would be quite displeased. His mother had already been harsh to her about her infertility, and this would exacerbate the situation. I wondered what she meant by cruel. That's when she finally revealed the truth about Ethan's family. Last Christmas they went to Ethan's parents' place for supper. His mother had made a statement about Lauren squandering Ethan's golden years. His sister scoffed and suggested that Ethan marry someone who worked. Then Ethan's father mentioned that in their day, a woman's duty was to give her husband children, and if she couldn't do that, what was she good for? Lauren claimed she had glanced at Ethan, expecting for him to protect her. He just sat there eating his meal. Later that night in the car, she questioned why he hadn't said anything. He informed her his father had a point. He'd married her anticipating children, but she hadn't delivered. I couldn't believe what I heard. I asked her why she was still with him. She said she loved him. That he was simply impatient. And that if she could give him a kid, everything would return to normal. I informed her that this was not how healthy relationships function. She hung up on me. The next day, Ethan arrived at my workplace. Someone in the lobby asked for me, so security summoned me down. When I arrived, he was clutching flowers. He apologized for his family. He said they didn't intend it. He asked if we could have coffee and discuss. I consented since we were in public and I felt it would be safe. We visited the coffee shop across the street. He bought me a latte. He appeared calm at first. He apologized again for the pressure. He stated that he understood my fears. Then he began discussing how he and Lauren had been experiencing troubles. He leaned closer and stated that I did not realize what I was doing to Rachel. That she'd become obsessed, that she couldn't sleep or eat, that she'd begun sobbing when driving past playgrounds, and that she'd had to leave her yoga class because another lady in it was pregnant. Then he revealed the worst part. He said Lauren told him she didn't want to live if she couldn't be a mother. I inquired whether she had stated it directly. He nodded. He showed me texts from her in which she said things like, life wasn't worth living, and that she had failed at the one thing she was supposed to achieve. I felt nauseous. I inquired whether she was getting assistance. He said she refused to see anybody. She continued insisting that if I helped them, everything would be okay. I exited the coffee shop. I dialed Charles immediately. I told him what Ethan showed me. Charles became silent. Then he said that Lauren had expressed feeling down, but he hadn't realized it was that terrible. He stated he had talked to her. Rachel contacted me that night, screaming. She said I betrayed her by informing Charles that I had made matters worse. That Charles had came over and had a lengthy conversation with her and Ethan. And now Ethan was upset with her. I wanted to know what Charles had said. She claimed he told Ethan that pressuring me was inappropriate. Their marital difficulties existed before the birth, and a baby would not solve them. That Ethan needs to get Lauren proper assistance rather than blaming everything on me. Then she explained that Charles had requested Ethan to leave for a while so he could talk to Lauren alone. Lauren wouldn't tell me what they talked about, but she did say Charles disappointed her since he was supposed to be on her side. She closed the conversation by claiming she needed time apart from all of us. That was 3 weeks ago. Lauren has now moved out of her residence. She's currently residing with Ethan's parents, which I believe is the worst possible situation for her. Ethan has been contacting me every few days with updates. He claims she barely eats. She does not leave the guest room. His mother supposedly continually reminding her that if she can't give them grandkids, Ethan should look for someone who can. Yesterday, Ethan sent me another message. He stated that his mother had proposed that I give eggs, even if I am unable to bear the kid. They could hire a surrogate and utilize my eggs, ensuring that the kid has Lauren's DNA via me because we are sisters. He called it a compromise. I searched up egg donations. It is not straightforward. Hormone injections are required for many weeks. There are hazards. It is intrusive, and I do not want my genetic material used to make a kid with whom I have no intention of raising or being linked. I said no again. This morning I received a call from Lauren's number, but it was Ethan's mom. She stated that she had Lauren's phone since Lauren was too sad to speak to anyone. She said I was ruining my sister, that I was selfish and harsh, that God has given certain women the power to make life. Then if I had it but Lauren didn't, I had an obligation to share it with her. I hung up. Jackson has been amazing throughout this. He has told me several times that I do not owe anybody my body, that this is ridiculous, yet he is also concerned. He believes Ethan is unstable. He believes the way they're all ganging up on me is abnormal. Charles phoned tonight. He stated he is worried about Lauren, but he is also concerned about me. He stated he should never have remained neutral, that he should have stopped this from the beginning. He said he was proud of me for staying firm. That really made me weep. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear it from him. However, Lauren is still at Ethan's parents' house. Ethan is still messaging me, and I keep thinking about Rachel's text to him about not wanting to live. I am not sure how this will finish. I know I can't give in, but my guilt is suffocating me. Update 2. It has been 4 weeks since my previous update. I need to tell you what occurred since things have grown far worse than before. 2 weeks ago, Ethan arrived to my flat around midnight. Jackson and I were already sleeping. The buzzer continued sounding. Jackson examined the camera and saw it was Ethan. We did not give him up. He stood outside for an hour, hitting the doorbell repeatedly. Finally, our building manager emerged and threatened to contact the police. Ethan departed. The next morning, I discovered that my automobile had 2 flat tires. There was no message, but the building's camera captured Ethan's car in the parking lot around the time it happened. Jackson asked me to make a police report. I did not. I was still hoping this might be settled without contacting police enforcement. I phoned Rachel instead. She responded, but her voice was different. Flat and soulless. I told her what Ethan did. She stated I was incorrect. Ethan would not do it. I mentioned that the camera showed his automobile. She hung up. I paid to get my tires fixed. I believed that would be the end of it. It was not. A few days later, my manager summoned me to her office. She stated that someone submitted an email to the company's general mailbox alleging I was pestering them. The email stated that I had been following them, sending threatening texts, and showing up at their residence unannounced. It included screenshots of texts that seemed to be from my phone number but that I had never sent. The screenshots were fabricated, poorly faked. My employer could tell, but she needed to record it. She asked if I knew who would do it. I informed her about the issue with Lauren and Ethan. My supervisor advised that I acquire a restraining order. I responded I will think about it. That night, someone hurled a brick through the living room window. Jackson was at work. I was home alone. A sheet of paper was wrapped around the brick and secured with a rubber band. I phoned the cops because the leaflet said, "Just say yes and this all stops." They came to take a report. They stated that without confirmation of who did it, there was nothing they could do. They advised that I install security cameras. Jackson and I went to the hardware shop the next day and purchased 2 cameras. We installed them ourselves. I eventually contacted Charles and explained everything. He was infuriated. He claimed he was going to talk to Ethan and put an end to this. I asked him not to. I was scared that would aggravate the situation, but Charles refused to listen. He drove to Lauren and Ethan's residence the following day. Lauren wasn't present. She was still living with Ethan's folks, but he was home. Charles informed me afterward what had happened. He stated he had knocked on the door and Ethan responded. Charles informed him that the harassment had to stop immediately, that he had gone too far, and that if he continued, he would destroy his marriage and life. Ethan appeared to laugh. He said Charles didn't realize the strain he was under, that his family had expectations, that Lauren was breaking down, and that it was my responsibility for refusing to assist. He said I had something Lauren needed, but was withholding it out of hatred. Charles stated that he informed Ethan that I did not owe anybody access to my body, and that the request was absurd. That Ethan should seek professional treatment for Lauren rather than blaming me. Ethan responded by slamming the door in Charles's face. The next day, Lauren called me for the first time in weeks. She inquired whether I knew what Charles had done. I said yes. She said I had wrecked everything. Ethan was furious than ever. His parents were urging him to leave her because she couldn't even persuade her own sister to help them. I questioned her why she was still supporting him and why she was remaining with people who had treated her badly. She added, "I wouldn't understand because I'd never wanted the things she wanted." Then she said something that still bothers me. She responded, "You stole your mother from me when you were born. The least you could do was help me become one." I was speechless. I was 4 years old when our mother departed. Lauren was 8. I did not make Mom go. But Rachel had evidently been harboring this animosity for years. She blamed me for Mom's abandonment of us. I questioned her whether she had truly felt this way all along. She began weeping, saying she didn't know, that everything was confusing, that all she wanted was a kid and couldn't understand why it was so difficult. I advised she speak with a professional. She stated she didn't need to speak to anyone. She wanted me to quit being selfish. We have not communicated since that call. That was 3 weeks ago, yet the harassment has not stopped. My work email was swamped with spam. Someone subscribed me to hundreds of mailing lists. My social media accounts were reported numerous times before they were suspended. Someone made bogus dating profiles using my photographs. Jackson insisted I submit a police complaint regarding everything. I did. They stated that they will investigate, but these things are difficult to trace. They inquired whether I had any proof that Ethan was behind it. I didn't have actual evidence, only strong suspicions. When I got home from work 4 days ago, I discovered that someone had been in my flat. Nothing was taken, however items were relocated. My laptop was open on a site where I hadn't left it. My dresser drawers were not completely closed. When I departed, a coffee mug from the cupboard was resting on the counter. I contacted Jackson in a panic. He returned home quickly. We reviewed the security footage from the cameras we had placed. They simply covered the entrance door and the window. We hadn't put one in yet. There was no one entering or exiting, according to the film. Jackson said I was being paranoid, that I had forgotten where I had put things, but I knew someone was in there. I could feel it. We replaced the locks that day. I couldn't sleep in my flat anymore. We packed our stuff and headed to the motel. Yesterday, Charles called. He said that Lauren had come to visit him. She had left Ethan's parents' house and was now residing with Charles. She informed him that Ethan had grown controlling, that he had been monitoring her phone, that he had told her she couldn't speak to me or Charles without his permission, and that his parents had told her she was useless. Charles stated that Lauren had asked him what she should do. He instructed her to petition for divorce. She'd stated she wasn't sure if she could, that she still loved Ethan, and that if they could only have a kid, he'd return to being the guy she married. Charles said he informed her that no kid was on the way. That Ethan needed to accept it, that their marriage had to end before anything terrible happened. Lauren reportedly wept for hours. Charles claimed she eventually fell asleep on his couch. She is still there now. I asked Charles whether he believed Ethan was the one who had been pestering me. Charles said yes. That Ethan had gotten obsessed. That he had formed the belief that I was the only thing standing between him and the life he desired. This morning, I received an SMS from an unknown number. It stated, You can't hide forever. We both know how this ends. Just agree and everyone can move on. I presented it to Jackson. He claimed we weren't going back to the flat, that we should stay somewhere Ethan cannot locate us. We've arrived at his brother's place, which is 2 towns over. I don't know what Ethan will do next. I'm not sure if Lauren will ultimately leave him. I'm not sure how long I have to live like this. All I know is that I cannot give in. Even though I am fatigued and afraid, all I want is my life back. Update 3. It has been 7 weeks since my previous update. This is probably my final article regarding this subject because it is essentially settled, but not in the way I could have imagined. I'll start with what happened 3 weeks ago. Lauren was still staying with Charles. Ethan had been phoning her regularly, but she didn't respond. Charles persuaded her to consult with a lawyer regarding their separation. She'd scheduled an appointment. The night before her appointment, Ethan arrived at Charles's residence. It was approximately 11 p.m. He repeatedly knocked on the door until Charles opened it. Charles informed me that Ethan looked dreadful. He hadn't shaven for weeks. His clothing was wrinkled. He didn't smell like he'd showered. Ethan requested to see Lauren. Charles said no. Ethan attempted to shove past him. Charles had blocked the entryway. Lauren came to check what was going on. She stood behind Charles. Ethan began shouting at her. He said she had betrayed him by leaving. She had pledged to make a life with him, but she was giving up. That if she had just persuaded me to aid them, none of this would have occurred. That his parents were correct when they said she was useless. Lauren simply stood there. She said nothing. Ethan continued going. He said I had poisoned her mind against him. That I felt envious because she had found someone to adore her while I was alone. I was not alone. I had Jackson, but Ethan was no longer making sense. Charles instructed Ethan to go. Ethan declined. He stated he wouldn't go without Lauren. Charles phoned the cops. Ethan eventually departed before they came, but he remained in his car outside the home. Charles and Lauren stared through the window. Ethan remained there all night. His automobile was still present in the morning. Lauren attended her lawyer's appointment nevertheless. Charles drove her. Ethan followed them all the way. He waited in the parking lot while she consulted with the attorney. When they emerged, Ethan got out of his car and approached them. He implored Rachel to return home. She said no. He questioned whether she would truly throw away 7 years of marriage. She said he had already damaged their marriage. Ethan grabbed her arm. Charles moved between them. Ethan let go but then yelled about how I had wrecked his life. Lauren was all he had, and now I was taking her away from him. How he would never forgive me for this. Charles got Lauren into the vehicle. They headed to the police station to file for a restraining order. It was given briefly. Ethan wasn't supposed to get within 450 feet of Lauren or Charles's homes. That following week, Jackson and I also filed for one. Our request was also approved. Ethan broke Lauren's restraining order 3 times inside the first week. The first time but he left flowers on Charles's doorstep, along with an apology message. The second time, he arrived at Lauren's yoga studio and waited outside until her class finished. The third time, he accompanied her food shopping. Lauren phoned the cops every single time they documented it. After the third transgression, Ethan was arrested. He spent 2 nights in jail until his parents got him out. While Ethan was in jail, Rachel stayed at Charles's house and began sorting through her belongings from the house she shared with him. She discovered his laptop. She subsequently informed me that she definitely shouldn't have read it, but she did. What she discovered was far worse than any of us had expected. Ethan had documented everything. He had spreadsheets that tracked my schedule. He had noticed when I left for work, when I returned home, and where I went on weekends. He had taken screenshots of all my social media postings. He had made bogus profiles to follow me online. He'd been preparing the harassment campaign for months. But the worst thing was what else Lauren discovered. Emails between Ethan and his mother. His mother had encouraged everything. She had informed him that I needed to be persuaded by all means necessary. She proposed the flat tires. She'd assisted him in creating the phony screenshots that were provided to my workplace. His mother has also communicated with surrogacy companies. She discovered one in another nation with less rules. She had planned to take Lauren there and have the surgery performed regardless of whether Lauren understood what was going on. The emails made it plain that Ethan's mother planned to take full control of the issue. Lauren reported all of this to the police. They conducted a more serious inquiry. Ethan was charged with stalking and harassment. His mother was hauled in for questioning but was not prosecuted. She stated she was only trying to help her son. Ethan accepted a plea agreement. He's on probation for 2 years. He has to remain away from me, Lauren, Charles and Jackson. He is not permitted to contact any of us, directly or indirectly. He must attend court-mandated anger management sessions. Lauren filed for a divorce. Their prenuptial agreement made things simple because they had no children and she had never worked during their marriage. She received a settlement that will provide her with financial support for the foreseeable future. She moved into her own apartment last month. She's no longer residing with Charles, she's attending online programs to get her degree. She claims she wants to be a school teacher. Rachel and I have still not fully healed our relationship. We occasionally text brief messages. She'll ask how I'm doing. I'll ask the same question, but we haven't seen each other in person since before all this happened. There is too much between us now. She apologized once via SMS. She claimed she had been so engrossed in her desire for a kid that she had lost sight of reality. That Ethan took advantage of this and exploited her. That she finally understood why I said no. That she apologized for everything. I replied back saying I accepted her apologies, but wanted time. Jackson and I moved into a different apartment. We did not renew my prior lease. There are too many negative memories there. The new location feels safer. We had a security system installed before we moved our stuff in. Charles checks in with both of us on a frequent basis. He sees Lauren once a week. He had supper with Jackson and myself every other week. He's attempting to maintain some sort of familial connection. I appreciate that about him. I still have moments when I peek over my shoulder, double-check that the doors are secured, and startle at unexpected sounds. Jackson says it's natural given what transpired. He has been patient with me. Lauren told me last week that she had started talking to someone at her school about the prospect of someday fostering children, rather than adopting them. She explained that she realized she wanted to help children in need rather than establish a perfect biological family. She suggested that this was what she was intended to do all along. I hope that is accurate. I hope she finds what she is seeking for. But I am not sure whether we will ever be as close as we were before. Too much has transpired, too much was stated. Ethan is still living at their previous place. Rachel found out through common acquaintances that he is already seeing someone new, someone younger. She worried whether he'd do the same thing to this new lady. I said, probably. The restraining orders expire after 16 months. I'm not sure what happens after that. I hope Ethan has moved on by then, and that he has found the assistance he requires, but I am prepared for the likelihood that he has not. Things are calm right now. My life is back to being my own. I go to work. I return home to Jackson. We are talking about acquiring a dog. Normal things. Lauren is creating her own life, one that isn't focused on Ethan, babies, or what she believed she should desire. And I'm fine with the notion that we may never be as close as we once were. Some things break and don't get repaired. Some relationships are unable to withstand the strain placed on them. That's just the way it is sometimes. At my daughter's 8th birthday, my mom yelled, "Your sister needs help." I calmly responded, "Her debt isn't my daughter's problem." My mother stunned. Sophie was turning 8 years old, the age when you're still young enough to believe your parents know everything, but old enough to realize they don't. She requested a princess-themed party, so my ex-wife and I spent the majority of Saturday afternoon hanging pink streamers from every available surface and convincing 10 8-year-old girls that this was the most amazing event of their lives. It worked mostly. There was cake. There were pizzas. There were youngsters racing about the backyard as if they'd injected sugar right into their veins. Everything was commotion, yelling, and the type of delight seen only at children's celebrations. My mother came at 2 o'clock, which was her usual time. Arrive after the tough lifting is completed, but early enough to participate in the cake portion. She was carrying a package wrapped in paper that appeared to have been stapled. Her energy was the type of manic that generally indicated she was ready to do something my therapist would have advised me to prepare for. "There's my princess," she exclaimed, swooping down on Sophie with such fervor that my 7-year-old took a little step back. She hugged my kid as if she were gathering her for a hostage scenario, then instantly began searching around the party for entertainment options. My ex-wife Rachel drew my attention across the deck. We had been divorced for 2 years, yet we had a unique co-parenting language that could be spoken with a single glance. "Your mom is about to do something." I was correct. About 20 minutes into the party, my mother slapped her hands together loudly, like adults do when they want youngsters to stop having fun and focus on them instead. "Everyone," she said, her voice piercing through the commotion like a knife through birthday cake. "I have an announcement." The students came to a halt. Adults froze in the middle of their conversations. There's something about the tone someone employs when they're ready to say something important, and my mother had hit it brilliantly. I wanted to say something in front of all of you, she said, gazing straight at me. Because this is a family matter, and I believe in honesty. Even hard honesty. Rachel's fingers touched my arm. Physically, it's a warning, a comfort, and a buckle up. Your Uncle Matthew's sister, my daughter Claire, my mother added, indicating vaguely at individuals who weren't there, is having financial troubles. She's made some errors, but she's family, and family helps each other. I could see where this was heading. So I've chosen to utilize Sophie's college savings to assist her get out of debt. It's the correct thing to do. Your relative needs assistance more than she does college prep. Rachel's hand tightened on my arm. One of the other parents was looking at their phone, probably wondering if they should leave, and the kids were confused. They'd been 8 and younger, and their brains couldn't process that an adult had just announced they were stealing from a child in front of witnesses. I sat down with my beer. What do you mean? I remarked quietly, my voice striking through the silence like a special type of weapon. The account I closed last month. My mother's expression shifted from confident to perplexed, to protective in approximately 2 seconds. What? She said. The college savings account, I repeated for Sophie, remaining calm and quiet enough for only close adults to hear. The one I closed last month after transferring all monies to her trust account at the brokerage business. The one with my and her names, not yours. My mother's expression shifted, and her assurance cracked like thin ice. I don't, she said. You don't have access to it, I explained. Because you were never intended to. Sophie's account was set up and managed by me. I blocked your access roughly 28 days ago when I noticed you'd been hinting about rearranging family finances. You cannot just, my mother started. I've already done that, I said. So, I'm not sure which account you were planning to raid, but it wasn't that one. My mother took out her phone, and I watched her open her banking app, look for the account number she seemed to have memorized and realize I was speaking the truth. What have you done? She yelled, her voice growing louder. My job as a parent, I explained, includes protecting my daughter's future from people who believe they have the right to make financial decisions for her. That's her education, my mother remarked. Her voice rose as if it were a volume dial. Someone was aggressively showing up. That's her future. That's my daughter, I continued, maintaining the same tone, and I make decisions about her future, not you. Not because I don't trust you with money, though we can certainly talk about that, but because she's my child, and I'm her father, and that's literally my job. My mother began shouting, but not in John's voice. Not speaking strongly, yelling, the type that rings out across a backyard full of 8-year-old girls and their parents. You're being selfish, she yelled. Your sister needs help, and you're being selfish. This is about your want to control everything. This is about you being ungrateful for all the assistance I've provided. Sophie's face became white. I saw the other kids stop playing and start gazing. Rachel stood up, ready to interfere if the situation progressed. And I remained calm. I think this conversation needs to happen somewhere else, I replied, referring to the children who are currently seeing their grandma have a full meltdown at their celebration. I'm not leaving, my mother said. I came to celebrate my granddaughter and to be honest with this family about what's happening with your sister. That's not wrong. That's not. You're right, I said. You came for those things, but you also came with the idea that you could make a financial choice for my daughter in front of her friends, and I would just accept because you are the adult in the room. And that anticipation is the issue. My mother opened her lips to answer, then closed it before opening it again. She did it 3 times, like a fish desperately attempting to get oxygen from dry soil. You're making a scene, she eventually remarked, her voice softer but furious, which made matters worse. No, I said. You made a scene. I'm just standing here. I'm just being honest about a decision I made months ago to protect my daughter's future from being sacrificed to someone else's bad financial choices. Your sister made one mistake, my mother explained. Your daughter made one mistake. I made a correction. Sophie's kid made no mistakes, and her college savings should not cover the cost of her aunt's learning experience. My mother departed around 9 minutes later. She did not say goodbye. She merely walked to her car, got in, and drove away while on the phone, most likely contacting my sister Claire to explain why the plan had failed. Rachel led Sophie inside to get away from the wreckage. The other parents gradually began to pull their children back into party mode, albeit the vibe was noticeably different. The wonderful bubble had popped. The notion that grown-ups had it all figured out had been broken in front of a group of 8-year-olds. I remained on the deck, sipping my beer and trying to understand what had just transpired. In front of witnesses, my mother attempted to seize my daughter's college savings and reroute them to my sister's debts. And when she learned she couldn't do it since I'd already safeguarded the account, she scolded me for being selfish. The turnaround was so great that it was nearly overwhelming. That evening, once the party was ended and the kids had gone to bed, Rachel and I sat on the back porch with wine instead of beer. "You knew she was going to do that," Rachel remarked without doubt. "I suspected," I stated. "She's been making comments for the past 5 months about how Claire needs help, about how family should sacrifice for family, about how Sophie has her whole life ahead of her. But Claire only has this moment." "So you set a trap," Rachel remarked. "I protected my daughter," I said. "If you want to call that a trap, sure. I'm not criticizing," Rachel responded. "I'm just observing that you saw this coming and you prepared for it." "Of course, I prepared for it," I said. "This is my mother. I understand how she thinks. I know she loves my sister more than she appreciates my parental authority, and I know that if given the chance, she would steal my daughter's college money to fix someone else's problem." "The question is," Rachel asked cautiously, "what happens now?" That was the true question, right? My mother had just openly attempted to take from my kid. She shouted at me in front of witnesses for not allowing her to do it. And she was undoubtedly attempting to find out how to persuade me that I had been mistaken. My phone vibrated. I received an SMS from my mother. "We need to talk about this. You can't just unilaterally decide about family finances." I wasn't interested. Another text. "Your sister is suffering. How can you be so cruel?" Another. "Sophie needs to know that family takes care of each other." One more. "I'm calling Dad. You're being unreasonable." I silenced the alerts and placed the phone down. "She's spiraling," Rachel said. "She is," I answered. "And I don't have any responsibility to unspiral her even though she's your mother." "Especially because she's my mother," I told her. "Because if I let her dictate how I manage my daughter's money based on guilt or obligation, then I'm teaching Sophie that other people's needs come before her own security. And I'm teaching her that manipulation is an acceptable way to solve problems." Rachel nodded slowly. "You've thought about this a lot," she added. "I have," I explained, "since this is not new. This is the first time she attempted to take action rather than merely guilt-tripping me about it." My phone vibrated again, my father this time. "Your mother says you're being selfish about Sophie's college fund." "What's going on?" I called him rather than messaging. "Hi Dad," I said. "What's this about the college fund?" he inquired. I detailed the facts, including the account deletion, party notice, and the backup plan I put in place for just this type of event. My father remained quiet for a long time. "Good," he eventually said. "Good," I said. "You did the right thing," he said. "Your mother means well, but she's never understood boundaries. Sophie requires you to maintain those limits." "Mom's upset with me," I said. "Of course she is," my father said. "But she'll get over it. And you'll sleep better at night knowing your daughter's future is protected." He was correct. I'd sleep better. I was already sleeping better knowing that my mother couldn't access that account even if she tried. My mother did not call me for 2 days following the birthday celebration. Instead, she phoned everyone else. My father received a version in which I was a selfish youngster who did not comprehend family devotion. My sister Claire received a version in which I attempted to wreck her life by refusing to assist her during a moment of need. My brother received a version in which I was power tripping due to the divorce. My cousins allegedly received a version in which I was keeping score and being vengeful about previous family problems. The only genuine version, that I had taken a financial decision with my own daughter's money to save it from being misdirected to fix someone else's problem, was strangely the least convincing tale. By day 3, a family group chat that had been quiet for months had suddenly exploded. My aunt, Elizabeth. "I heard what happened at Sophie's party. That's not how we do things in this family." My cousin, Andrew. "Pretty harsh to embarrass your mother like that in front of other people." My uncle James. "Your mom was trying to help someone. You could have handled it privately." Nobody was questioning why my mother felt entitled to my daughter's money. No one was asking if it was right for her to make a financial choice for my child without contacting me. They were just accepting the assumption that I had done something wrong by declining. I did not react to any of them. On day 4, my mother called. "We need to talk," she remarked, her voice seeming both calm and enraged. "Okay," I responded. "Not over the phone," she said. "In person this weekend you're going to come to the house and we're going to have a real conversation about how you've been treating me." I wanted to ask what I had done that needed to be handled differently, but I knew how that conversation would go. She would make a list of grievances. She'd rant about how ungrateful I was. She would bring up moments when I had disappointed her. She would say this about my character rather than about the precise decision I had taken. "What time?" I inquired. "Sunday. 2 o'clock, she answered. "And don't bring any excuses." Sunday at 2 p.m., I was sitting in my mother's living room, drinking coffee I didn't want and feeling the dread that comes with knowing you're going to be scolded by someone who refuses to listen. My mom sat across from me. My father carefully sat on the sofa in what I knew as the neutral territory stance. He attracted my attention for a second. I could see sympathy there. He knew what was coming. "I want to understand," my mother began. "What I did that was so terrible that you felt the need to humiliate me in front of a room full of people. You announced you were going to use my daughter's college savings without asking me," I remarked quietly. "That's what happened. I was trying to help my daughter," she explained. "I was trying to be a good mother and a good sister. I was trying to show that family comes first. But you did it by making a decision about my daughter's money," he responded. "Without consulting me, without asking me if I agreed. You just announced it like it was a done deal because I knew you'd say no." My mother said, and there it was. The admission that she knew what she was doing was wrong but chose to do it nonetheless. "Right," I replied. "You knew I'd say no because taking your granddaughter's college fund to pay for your daughter's debt is not a reasonable request. So instead of making the request, you just announced the decision and hoped I wouldn't object. That's not fair." My mother answered, "I was trying to assist Claire. She is hurting. She committed errors, but she remains family." "I'm not disagreeing with that," I responded. "Claire's family, and if you want to help her, that's your decision. But you support her with your own money, not Sophie's college fund." "It's not just mine," my mother explained. "It's a family issue. Your daughter will benefit from this family and the way we care for one another." I responded, "I take care of her, but it doesn't mean she owes her college money to individuals who made poor financial choices." My mom stood up. "You're heartless," she stated. "You've always been heartless. Even as a child, you never understood the importance of family sacrifice." "I understand it fine," I responded, remaining sitting. "I recognize that sacrifice should not come from an 8-year-old's education fund. I recognize Claire is an adult, and Sophie is not responsible for her financial troubles." "Your sister is drowning in debt," my mother remarked, her voice rising. "Drowning, and you won't even help." "I will help," I responded. "I can give you money. I can help her work through a budget. I can connect her with a financial advisor, but what I won't do is let you raid my daughter's future to solve an adult's financial crisis. That's not helping." My mother remarked, "That is sanctimonious." "No," I replied. "That is being a parent. That is safeguarding my child's interests, rather than giving them up to make someone else's life easier." My dad cleared his throat. "I think what your mother is struggling with," he continued quietly, "is that you made this decision unilaterally without discussing it with anyone." "I discussed it with my therapist," I replied. "And with Rachel. I discussed it with myself. I terminated the account in my name using the money I had donated for my daughter's benefit." What did I need to address with my mother? "You might have come to us," my mother continued. "Or asked. You could have trusted us to make the correct decision." "Based on what?" I asked. "Based on the fact that you attempted to make a significant financial choice about my daughter without consulting me? That doesn't appear to be proof that I should trust you with her money." My mother sat down again. "I don't know who you've become," she murmured gently. "I don't recognize you anymore." "I've become someone who defends his daughter," I replied. "And someone who establishes limits. I've evolved into someone who does not allow guilt to influence his parenting decisions. Perhaps you don't know that guy, but he is a greater father than I was before." We sat silently for a time. "Claire phoned me," my mother said finally. She felt embarrassed. "She learned about what you did from her pals at the party." "I'm sorry she was humiliated," I answered sincerely. "But that's not my responsibility to manage." What's my responsibility is protecting my daughter and making sound financial decisions about her future. Even if it means you lose your relationship with your mother? My mother inquired. That was the threat, right? If you don't do what I want, I'll make you choose between being a good parent and having a mother. If you're saying I have to choose between protecting Sophie and keeping your approval, my reply was, then I'm choosing Sophie every time without question for the rest of my life. My mother's face collapsed somewhat. That's not what I'm saying, she said. But it was. It absolutely was. Yes, it is, I answered softly. And I see why. You feel as if I deceived you. You believe I prioritized my daughter above you, which is true. I did. I will. I will always put my kid above your sentiments. It's selfish, my mother said. Maybe, I said. But it's also good parenting. And I'm okay with you thinking I'm selfish if it means Sophie grows up knowing her father protected her when he needed to. I left my parents' house an hour later, and my mother did not hug me goodbye, nor did she say she loved me. She just remarked, I hope you know what you're doing. She said in a tone that suggested she hoped I didn't. My father escorted me to the door. You did the right thing, he said calmly. Don't let her make you doubt that. I won't, I said. But it would be easier if she could just accept it without trying to make it my fault. She will eventually, he explained, but not today. Today. She's still mad because you didn't let her control the story. 2 weeks later, my sister Claire called, and I almost didn't answer. Hi, she murmured, her voice unsure in a manner I hadn't heard before. Hi, I said. I wanted to call earlier, she said, but I was embarrassed and angry. I guess I was hoping Mom could persuade you to reconsider your mind. She tried, I explained. I know, Claire responded. She called me 6 times a day for a week, telling me all the reasons you were being unreasonable. And now, I asked. I'm phoning because I've been in treatment, Claire responded. And my therapist helped me understand that Mom using my financial irresponsibility as leverage to take money from my niece is not great for anyone. I felt a change in my chest. I had to declare bankruptcy, Claire explained. It was terrible and embarrassing, and I despised it. But it also taught me that my debt is my responsibility, not Mom's or yours. I'm sorry you went through that, I added, and I meant it. I'm sorry I let Mom turn this into a family crisis. Rachel corrected herself. I should have told her no. I should have said I got myself into this. I'll get myself out. But it was simpler to let Mom be upset with you than to take responsibility for myself. You're being responsible now, I told you. That's what matters. Can Sophie still come to my birthday next month? Rachel inquired. Or am I on the permanent list? I laughed. Actually laughed. Sophie can come, I said. But you're still a little bit on the list. Fair, Rachel said. I'll work my way off it. My mother is still upset with me, by the way. She has been angry for 5 months now. She still discusses the birthday celebration as if it were a personal betrayal. She still complains about how I handled it poorly and how I should have approached her privately, but she no longer tries to take Sophie's money. She does not reveal her intentions to steal her college fund. She has learnt through hard experience that there are some boundaries I will not cross. Sophie still adores her grandmother, visits her on Saturdays, and phones her to discuss school, books and other topics of interest to 8-year-olds, but she is also aware that her grandmother attempted to take something that belonged to her and that her father intervened. I believe that is the true lesson. Not that family or borders are vital, but that doing the right thing might cost you something. And doing it anyhow, even if it's difficult, is what really counts. 3 months after the family gathering, my mother turned up to Sophie's school, but not to take her up. Not for any valid cause. She emerged in the parking lot while I was waiting for Sophie to come out. We need to talk, she stated via the vehicle window. Okay, I said, sliding it down. But not here. Not at Sophie's school. Then when? She challenged. You avoid my calls, you avoid my messages. You won't come to family dinners because every time I do, the conversation turns into you trying to convince me I was wrong about the college fund. I replied. Because you were wrong, she stated frankly. You made a unilateral decision about family finances, and you won't even apologize. It wasn't a family decision. I responded. It was my decision about my daughter's money. Those are different things. You know what your problem is, my mother continued, her tone becoming sharper. You believe you're really smart. You believe you're right, But you're actually alienated and furious, and you're punishing this family for not supporting your fantasies. My delusions got a $3 million book deal and made the New York Times bestseller list, I remarked with no apology. Wait, that was the other man. He's the divorced author from the book tour, not me. I'm the man who protects his daughter's college money, and I think it's working out rather well. This isn't about your success, my mother remarked. This is about the fact that you've become someone cold and distant. You've become someone who doesn't value family. I value family, I explained. I just don't value being manipulated by family. Those are different things. Sophie got out of school. When she noticed my mother's automobile, her entire body tightened. "Hi, Grandma," she said, settling into the passenger seat with a tiredness that an 8-year-old shouldn't have. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother responded, her tone quickly changing to honey sweet. "I was just talking to your father about some things." "What things?" Sophie said, glancing at me. "Nothing important," I said. "Sophie, we need to go." "Wait," my mother said. "Sophie, I want you to know that I love you very much, and I want you to know that your father and I disagreed about something, but that doesn't mean your grandmother doesn't care about you." "Mom," I replied, my voice threatening. "I'm talking to my granddaughter," she said abruptly. "Sophie, sometimes adults make choices that are hurtful, and your father made a choice that hurt me. But I want you to know that I'm trying to understand why he thinks he was right." "He was right," Sophie remarked, "and I've never been more proud of an 8-year-old in my life. He's my dad. That money was for me. He gets to decide about my money." My mother's face became frigid. I replied, starting the car. "We're done here." That night, I scheduled a family gathering. Not the actual one. Everyone is on a Zoom call. My father, mother, sister, and brother. "I'm calling this to set some boundaries," I blurted out. "And I'm doing it in front of all of you so there's no confusion about what I mean. This is ridiculous." My mother started. "Let me finish," I said. "I've tried being reasonable. I've tried explaining my decisions. I've tried having conversations about why I did what I did, but none of that's working because you all keep expecting me to change my mind." "We don't expect you to change your mind," my father said. "We just think you showed up at my daughter's school," I said, gazing straight at my mother. "You tried to use Sophie as a mediator in our conflict. You told her that I hurt you by protecting her own money. That crosses a line." My mother began to object. "I'm not finished," I said. "Here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to stop bringing this up. The birthday party happened. The decision was made. We move forward from here. Second, you're going to stop trying to convince me I was wrong. I wasn't. I'm not. I won't. Third, you're going to cease using my connection with Sophie as leverage." "I would never," my mother began. "You literally just did," I told her today at school. "Here's my boundary. If you include Sophie in this fight again, I'm going to take a vacation from having you in our life. Not forever, but long enough that everyone knows that my kid is not a bargaining chip." "You can't threaten me with my granddaughter," my mother said. "I'm not threatening you," I explained. "I'm telling you what the consequence is if you keep crossing this line." "That's not a threat. That's a boundary." Claire unexpectedly spoke out. "I think Dad's right," she said. "Mom, you need to let this go. You made a choice about Sophie's money without asking Dad. He protected the account. That's done. Now you need to accept it and move on." "I'm not taking parenting advice from someone who declared bankruptcy," my mother said. "Good," Claire remarked. "Because I'm not giving it. I'm just observing that you're making everything worse by not accepting a decision that's already made." My brother remained quiet. My father nodded slowly. "I support the boundaries," my father responded. "And if you keep pushing, I'll be backing your son up on taking space." My mother peered around the Zoom, as if she couldn't believe she was being targeted. "Fine," she eventually said. "Fine, I'll stop bringing it up. But I don't accept that you were right about any of this." "You don't have to accept it," I told you. "You just have to stop trying to change it." The following 3 months were peaceful. My mother did not call. She did not text. She just wasn't present. Sophie inquired about her several times. I informed her that Grandma was taking some time to think about things. Then, during month 4, my mother called. "I want to see Sophie," she explained. "Okay," I responded. "When?" "This Saturday. Just the two of us. I want to take her to lunch." I'm going to need to ask Sophie if she wants to go, I told her. Why wouldn't she want to? My mother inquired. Because you tried to use her as a mediator in our conflict, that was my reply. So she might be uncomfortable. We're going to let her choose. When I asked Sophie if she wanted to go to lunch with her grandma, she hesitated. Is Grandma mad at me? She inquired. No, I said. But Grandma and I had a disagreement, and Grandma said some things that weren't very nice. I think she wants to talk to you about it. Does she want to apologize? Sophie inquired. I think so, I answered. But I'm not sure. That's why I want you to choose if you want to go. Sophie contemplated it for a long time. I'll go, she eventually said. But I want you to know that if she tries to make me feel bad about what you did, I'm going to tell her she's being weird. I laughed. That seems fair. I took Sophie up from lunch an hour and a half later. She got into the car, and I inquired, how was it? Weird, she said. Grandma apologized. She said she was sorry for trying to take my college money. She said she was scared about Aunt Claire and she wasn't thinking clearly. How did that feel? I inquired. Better, Sophie said. She also gave me a new book and she said she wanted me to know that she loves me, even when she and Dad disagree about things. I felt something settle in my chest. That was nice of her, I commented. She also said something weird, Sophie went on. She said that you were right, that you're a good father for protecting me. She said that? I inquired, attempting to keep my tone calm. She said she didn't like admitting it, Sophie said, but that she's been thinking about what I said about how the money was for me and you get to decide about my money. She said that made sense. I reached across to squeeze Sophie's hand. I'm proud of you, I said, for standing up for yourself. I learned it from you, Sophie said simply. That night, my mother called me. I owe you an apology, she replied without explanation. Okay, I said, unsure where this was headed. I was wrong, she explained. Not about wanting to help Claire. I stand by that. But about trying to make it your problem. About trying to take from Sophie. About involving her in our conflict. I was wrong about all of that. Thank you for saying that, I said. I'm also wrong about something else. She proceeded. I've been angry at you for being independent and strong and unwilling to let people manipulate you. But those aren't bad things. Those are things I should be proud of. Things I raised you to be, whether I realized it or not. I did not say anything. I just listened. I'm sorry, she said. Not because I want to solve things quickly, but because I finally understand what you were doing. You were the father you needed to be, and I was the mother who didn't know how to accept it. I accept your apology, I said. I'd like to do better, she explained. Going forward, I'd like to try. I'd like that too, I responded. We hung up after that. Not everything has been settled, but there is some understanding. Sophie's 10th birthday rolled along, and this time my mother called to see what she might give rather than simply announcing what she was taking. I'd like to help with the party, she explained, if that's okay with you. That's okay, I responded. What did you have in mind? Whatever you think is appropriate, she said. I don't want to overstep. That comment, I don't want to overstep, was maybe the most encouraging thing I'd ever heard from my mother. She brought a cake, not the main cake, but a treat that she had cooked herself. She arrived an hour before the party began and asked if I needed assistance with anything. She stayed at the party and played games with the kids rather than attempting to be the focus of attention. When it was time to depart, she hugged Sophie and said she'd see her next week for their regular lunch rendezvous. There was no drama, no manipulation, no financial announcements, just a grandma being a grandmother. My sister Claire was also there. She had been clean for 14 months. She worked as a financial consultant, assisting others in avoiding the same mistakes she had made. She handed Sophie a gift card and a message that said, "To my smart niece, who reminds me that consequences teach us things." My brother and I genuinely chatted about work, our kids, and other typical topics that brothers discuss when they are not involved in family strife. My father called me aside at one time. "I'm proud of you," he stated, "for sticking to your boundaries, for not letting guilt change your mind. That takes strength." "I learned it from you," I explained. He grinned. "I'm not sure I deserve credit for that, but I'll take it." The college fund is still there and increasing slowly. Sophie is aware of the situation now. She is aware that when someone attempted to steal it, her father safeguarded it. Understands that sometimes loving your family requires saying no to them. That's probably the most significant thing she's learned. Not that family is always right, but that defending yourself and those you care about is not selfish. It is necessary. My mother and I still have our differences. She still believes I should be more forgiving about things. I still believe she should be more respectful of limits, but we discovered a medium ground in which we may both be correct about certain things, and incorrect about others. I believe that is the definition of family. People who know you and stay despite the lack of perfect harmony or full approbation. People who can acknowledge when they're incorrect. People who can say I'm sorry, with genuine emotion. People who can learn. My mother has learned a lot over the past year. Regarding what it means to appreciate someone's parenting. About what it means to set and accept boundaries. Instead of attempting to be the center of your adult child's life, consider what it means to be a grandma. And I've learned that forgiving does not imply forgetting. It entails deciding to continue forward even when something hurts. Sophie's college fund is held in an account that only I have access to. It will be ready for her when she turns 18. And it will exist because on her 8th birthday, I said no to someone I adored. That no protects more than simply money. It safeguarded Sophie's right to know that her father would prioritize her safety over family unity. It kept her from learning that manipulation is okay when it comes from someone you should trust. Most significantly, it safeguarded her from a future in which she learned to prioritize other people's issues above her own. Last week my mother texted me a picture. It was from Sophie's school, and I had attended a father-daughter event there. My mother had evidently acquired the photo from another parent. Sophie is holding my hand in this shot. She looks up at me as if I've hung the moon. I stare down at her as if she were the most important thing in the world. My mother's text stated, "This is what I see today, and this is what I was attempting to safeguard by giving you her money. Not the money, but you as her parent. I apologize for taking so long to realize you were already doing this." I did not answer with words. I merely sent her message with a heart emoji because sometimes that's enough. Sometimes all you need is a heartfelt message. I forgive and understand you, and we'll be okay all at once. The college money is still rising. Sophie is still protected. My mother is still learning. My family remains confusing. But we are better today. Not perfect, but better. And as I've discovered, better is often all you can ask for. At Thanksgiving, my sister accused me of asking for money, so I stopped paying her bills. 4 years, $58,000, gone. She didn't expect that. As I stand at the entrance of my parents' magnificent suburban house, the weight of the handmade pumpkin pie helps to steady my hands. Through the leaded glass panels flanking the front entrance, I see a kaleidoscope of movement. 20 relatives interacting under the light of my mother's beloved crystal chandelier. For a brief time, I consider turning around and going back to my apartment to spend Thanksgiving with a frozen supper and mindless TV. But suddenly my father sees me through the glass. There she is. His voice reverberates as he swings open the door. The number cruncher has come. I force a grin and go in, the smells of sage and roasted turkey surrounding me. My modest knee-length dress in deep teal suddenly feels inadequate among the exuberant glitter of my mother's home. "Oh, you've brought dessert," Mom says, taking the pie with a little peck on my cheek. Her gaze flashed past me, toward the driveway. "Is that everything you brought?" "Just me and the pie," I respond, attempting to keep my voice light. "Created from scratch." Dad pats my shoulder. "Emily works with numbers, a very steady employment, always punctual." The compliment hits like a backhand slap. Always punctual, consistently dependable. It's always dull. I've heard variants of this throughout my life. The phone rings, and Mom's expression brightens. "That is your sister. She is running a bit late. 25 minutes and counting." I grumble, but no one notices as I trudge toward the living room, where family are gathering for drinks and canapés. Uncle Mark raises a drink. The accountant arrived. "Emily, how are you balancing your books?" "I'm an internal auditor," I correct, taking a glass of champagne from the passing tray. "And business exists." The abrupt silence settles over the room like a thick veil. Conversations cease in the middle of a phrase. Heads turn toward the entrance. My sister has come. Jessica enters 25 minutes late, looking like she walked off a magazine cover. Her camel Max Mara coat, which I recognized from last month's Vogue, falls nicely over her shoulders. The Prada purse swinging from her wrist is probably more expensive than my monthly rent. "Sorry I'm late," she says, not sounding sorry at all. The traffic was extremely terrible. Mom rushes forward, smiling with a joy she seldom displays when presenting me. "You look gorgeous, dear." She touches the sleeve of Jessica's coat. "Is this new?" Jessica shows off. "I picked it up last weekend." The hue appealed to me. "You work so hard," Mom exclaims. "You deserve to reward yourself." I drink hard and empty my champagne glass in one gulp. The irony burns hotter than the bubbles. Jessica hasn't had a stable work in 4 years, moving between consulting assignments that never stay but always have impressive-sounding titles. Dinner is called before I can go for a refill. I am sat between Cousin Sophia and Uncle Mark's new girlfriend, whose name I have already forgotten. Across from me, Jessica holds court, regaling the group with tales of her latest initiative, which involves social media and premium labels. "Emily?" Sophia turns to me during a pause, her voice quiet. "I had been meaning to question you about my school debts. The interest is killing me, and I was wondering if you had any advice about restructuring." I lean in, sincerely happy to be helping. "Actually, I recently read of an application that could be useful. If your income falls below a specific threshold." "Not everyone wants to talk about math over dinner, sweetheart." Mom interrupts from 3 seats away, her hearing suddenly selective and acute. She grins at Sophia. "Why not ask Jessica? She's good with money." The table becomes silent. I look at my plate, fork hanging above uncooked turkey. Jessica's laughter tinkles like ice in a crystal glass. "Oh, Emily is constantly crunching figures," she continues, swirling her wine. "And it appears that cash is constantly in short supply." My cheeks are burning. I handle my money well. "Do you?" Jessica arches one gorgeous brow. "So, why are you continuously begging for loans?" The dining room temperature drops 10 degrees. 20 sets of eyes move between us, like spectators at a tennis match. "I've never asked you for money," I continue, my voice calm amidst the screaming in my ears. "Not once. Not once. Please." Jessica rolls her eyes dramatically. "You should not ask for money. It is humiliating." The words struck me like a physical blow. My ears ring with the boldness of her deception, a total reversal of our reality. No one speaks. Nobody protects me. Not even our parents, who know exactly where the money is going. Talk about humiliating. Dad interrupts with forced humor. "Did anyone see the Seahawks game last Sunday?" The fourth quarter was something else. Just like that, the conversation moves on, leaving my shame behind like roadkill no one wants to see. I sat transfixed, taken back to when I was 10 years old, emptying my piggy bank to assist Jessica purchase a dancing outfit. "Your sister needs it more than you." Mom had stated this while caressing my head. "She has a recital coming soon. You are the realistic one, Emily. The practical one. The accountable one. The one expected to make a sacrifice." When dessert is served, I excuse myself and sneak into the powder room. My hands quiver as I shut the door behind me, but my mind is as clear as it has ever been. I take out my phone and open my banking app, glancing at the 5 regular payments too. Various accounts in Jessica's name. 4 years. $58,200. A monthly average of $900. Auto insurance. Credit card minimums. Personal loan repayments. The proof of my sister's financial vampirism appears on my computer in tidy, orderly rows, just as an auditor would. Without hesitation, I choose each payment and cancel it. Confirmation messages display one at a time. Recurring payment was discontinued. 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 I pour cold water on my face, then wipe it with one of Mom's ornate guest towels before returning to the dining room. My pumpkin pie is in the center of the table with chunks missing from the flawless crust. "There you are," Mom says. "We started without you. That is okay." I settle back into my seat, a peculiar serenity flowing over me. I'm not really hungry for dessert anyway. My cell phone vibrates in my pocket. My bank sends me confirmation letters. The cancellations are complete. "More coffee, Emily?" Dad offers the pot in his hand. I grin and hold out my cup. "Yes, I believe I will have a second helping. Tonight will be the first time in 4 years that I will not be paying for my sister's life. For the first time in forever, I'm selecting myself, and it feels like the first breath after nearly drowning. Numbers do not lie. They do." The next morning, The morning light streams through the blinds of my modest one-bedroom apartment, and I open my laptop at the little desk cramped between the kitchen and living room. The coffee maker gurgles in the background, its familiar cadence keeping my hands steady while I work on a new spreadsheet. Payment history. Jess Cole. I write in the heading, my fingers working with the accuracy that makes me useful at work. Each keystroke feels like recovering a part of me. I open out my financial records and meticulously replicate every payment made to my sister over the last 4 years. The spreadsheet rises row by row, like an archaeological dig into my financial sacrifices. Each month, you make 3 separate credit card payments. The personal loan that was meant to be temporary until her commission arrived, and auto insurance for the luxury SUV she desperately required for client appointments but never materialized. The sum is at the bottom of the column. $58,200. The number lies there, accusing me of gullibility rather than kindness. Every month, about $950 more than my own vehicle payment are secretly fed to Jessica's meticulously created facade. I store the document in 3 different cloud locations. After gathering the evidence, I take another drink of coffee. My phone vibrated. Again. The panel displays Jessica's name for the 16th time since morning. I quiet it without reading the message, yet the notifications continue to show. Something is incorrect with the payments. Call me right now. Have you changed banks? Payment failed. What have you done? The credit card company phoned. Fix it. Auto pay was turned down. Call me back. Are there insufficient funds? What's happening? The texts go from perplexity to fear to wrath, the punctuation increasing with her urgency. 15 calls, more than 30 texts in barely 24 hours. I put my phone screen down and resume working. By mid-afternoon, the inevitable occurs. My mother's name appeared on screen. I answer on the 3rd ring. Emily? What's happening? Jessica claims you are refusing to help her with something. Her voice contains the typical sense of disappointment. It's like if I'm 10 years old again, hoarding my birthday money instead of sharing. I have been paying her bills for 4 years, Mom. When I speak to my mother, my voice sounds different, more steady than it ever has. She informed everyone at Thanksgiving yesterday that I had asked her for money, so I stopped. A sudden intake of breath. That's not what she intended. You know how Jessica reacts when she is nervous. She exaggerates. It was not an exaggeration. That was a lie. Everyone believed her. You're being theatrical. Family helps family. I assisted for 4 years. That's $58,200 of my money. A long silence followed by rustling as the phone changed hands. Emily, this is Dad. His voice suddenly sounds older. What is this about money? Your sister claims you cut her off without notice. Did she explain why she needs my money each month? She has been experiencing cash flow issues with her firm. You are aware of this. Dad, she doesn't own a business. She has not had consistent job in 3 years. Another prolonged stillness. You have changed, he eventually admits. You used to be kind. The words cut deeper than intended, yet clarity emerges to counteract the agony. I respond, I have not changed. I basically stopped allowing others to utilize my compassion as a safety net. The stunned quiet that ensues tells me they have never analyzed our family dynamic from this perspective. The call ends uncomfortably with promises to speak about it later, which we all know means, I hope you come to your senses. I'd hardly put down my phone when it rang again. Lauren, I'm just checking in. You left Thanksgiving so soon. Her voice drifts off, looking for information. It was a rough evening. I make my proposition cautiously. Jessica has been contacting everyone about her money issues. Something about you pulling out of a loan? A bitter chuckle emerges before I can stop it. I did not back out of a loan. After 4 years of paying her debts, I stopped sending her monthly payments. Wait, have you been paying her bills? But she owns a large house in Bellevue. Lauren's surprised tone reinforces my suspicions. Nobody knew. Jessica had spent years projecting a successful image while quietly emptying my funds. How much are we talking about? Lauren asks. $58,200. Emily, holy crap. She pauses. No wonder you constantly decline family trips. A lump develops in my throat. All those years of making excuses about job responsibilities, saving for a house, and the need to be present in case of an emergency when the truth was simpler and more painful. I couldn't afford Jessica's lifestyle while also maintaining my own. Lauren hangs off, vowing secrecy she knows she won't keep, and my phone beeps with a text from cousin Michael. It's about time someone stood up to the golden child. The truth is now spreading around the family, reshaping 4 years of events where Jessica arrived in luxury attire while I wore the same black dress with various accessories. She brought costly wines, whilst I made from scratch because it was cheaper. Where she discussed luxury resorts and I gently proposed staycations. I closed the spreadsheet and shut down my laptop. The documentation is completed. The payments are terminated. The truth is out in the wild. For the first time in 4 years, the entire $950 of my monthly Jessica payment will remain in my personal account. The thought does not provide the satisfaction I imagined, but rather an empty sense of relief. It's like removing a splinter that has been in your body for so long that you've adapted your actions to prevent discomfort. I check my phone, where the notification count has risen to 48. Tomorrow will bring more calls, guilt, and pressure. But tonight, the figures are plain. And unlike sisters, statistics do not lie. At 6:47 a.m., my phone receives a notice for the family group chat. The following morning, I gaze at the screen, still warm under my cover, and immediately regret looking. Please pray for Emily at this tough time. Jessica's note reads, mental health issues can manifest in a variety of ways, including financial jealousy and irrational behavior. I look at the ceiling, counting the soft popcorn ridges to keep from flinging my phone across the space. Within seconds, replies poured in. Oh no. What happened? Sending you love, Emily. We are here for you. Should we prepare a care package? Nobody is asking what triggered this announcement. Nobody disputes its veracity. My sister's word is gospel, and I am suddenly positioned as the unstable family member who is having a breakdown. My mother calls within minutes. Emily Marie Thompson. Her voice has that special tone reserved for serious disappointments. You have to address this before Thanksgiving is entirely ruined. What precisely do I need to fix? I inquire, putting my feet into slippers and going into my kitchen to begin coffee. Don't act stupid. Jessica is devastated. Your father can hardly look at his phone when she texts about you. She pauses. We raised you better than that. The coffee maker gurgles as I measure the grinds with practiced accuracy. Did you ask Jessica precisely what I had done? She showed me the bank's alerts. All of those payments were immediately discontinued. Mother's voice lowers to an accusing whisper. Emily has bills, responsibilities, roots. So do I. The words are stronger than I anticipated. This is not like you, she adds. The daughter I nurtured would never forsake her sister. I watch the coffee flow gradually into the pot, black and clear. Jessica's bills have been paid for 4 years by the daughter you raised, despite the fact that she claims I asked her for money. Silence spreads between us like a wire. I'm going to be late for work, I announce, in an extraordinary act of defiance. Give Dad my love. I stop the conversation before she can react and open Facebook to see Jessica's most recent performance, a nicely filtered photo of her looking pensively out a window with the message, heartbroken when family members battle with envy. I'm praying for healing at this terrible time. There have already been 27 supportive comments. I dismiss the app without answering and finish preparing for work. When I get at the office, something unexpected occurs. I'm working better than I have in months. Client documents move through my review process with extraordinary speed. Spreadsheets that often require double-checking become perfectly obvious on the first pass. You appear to be more concentrated recently. My manager makes a statement during our afternoon check-in. Maintain your current course of action. I'm saving an additional $950 every month in my bank account and sleeping through the night for the first time in years. That evening, I bought a new desk for my home office, a substantial wood piece that I'd wanted for months but couldn't afford while supporting Jessica's lifestyle. As I input my credit card information, I don't feel the normal concern about spending on myself. I made no mental calculations regarding how this purchase would influence my capacity to cover Jessica's auto insurance or minimum credit card payments. I understand I've been living below my means, not through austerity or prudent financial planning, but to subsidize my sister's extravagance. The realization sits in my gut like a stone. The actual test of my newfound determination comes 3 days later, when Jessica emerges unexpectedly in my office building lobby. As I return from lunch, I notice her through the glass doors, with luxury sunglasses perched over immaculate makeup, intentionally unkempt hair, and what looks to be a carefully chosen dress that signals both affluent casualness and sorrow. "How could you leave me like this?" she demands loudly as I approach, tears flowing down her cheeks but without upsetting her mascara. "After everything I've done for you," heads turn in the lobby. My co-workers decrease their pace, trying not to listen yet plainly taking in every word. I keep my voice measured and quiet. "This is not the place to talk about your money troubles, Jessica." "Financial problems?" She chuckles, her voice loud and harsh. "You're the one who's always required my assistance, and now when I just need you momentarily, you cut me off completely." A security guy turns our way, alarmed about the increasing volume. "Call me when you're ready to discuss repayment plans," I reply gently. "Repayment?" The word lingers between us like a grenade with the pin removed. Her tears go instantaneously. The metamorphosis would be stunning if I hadn't seen it so many times before. The abrupt shift from hurt victim to cold calculation when persuasion fails. "This is not over." She hisses, her voice suddenly calm. She turns abruptly, stiletto heels clicking on marble as she departs through spinning doors. I watch her go, strangely calm in the aftermath of what could have been a disastrous argument. Saturday offers unexpected support. Lauren appears at my apartment door with lunch from my favorite deli and a compassionate grin. "You okay?" she asks as she unpacks sandwiches and soup containers on my modest dining table. Everyone's discussing what occurred. "Which version are they discussing?" I inquire, taking plates from my cupboard. Lauren shook her head. "The full story is coming out. Michael phoned me after chatting with your father. Is it true that Jessica owes you almost $50,000? I confirm the amount of $58,200, but from what I can figure, her overall debt is closer to $104,000. Lauren stops eating her lunch in the middle. "How much is $104,000? How is this possible? They reside in that lovely Bellevue home. Mortgage to the limit," I respond. "Plus 3 maxed out credit cards, 2 personal loans, and a 3-month late automobile lease. I've been paying the minimum for years. She was using you the entire time." Lauren's voice becomes agitated, despite the fact that she appears to be successful. My phone vibrates with a notice. The younger cousins have started a new group chat called Team Emily, which does not include Jessica or my parents. When my phone calls with an unusual number, I'm still processing what's happened. I nearly decline until Lauren looks at the screen. "That is David's cell," she replies, her eyes widening. "Jessica's spouse." I accept the call and put it on speaker. "Emily?" David's voice sounds strained. "We need to discuss." "I'm listening," I say. I had no notion about any of it. He begins. "She hid everything. The payments, the debt, all of it. All of it." The genuine honesty in his speech catches me off guard. "Thank you for assisting her discreetly throughout the years." He continues. "I believed we were steady, but we've been spending more than we can afford to keep up appearances with the neighbors." I meet Lauren's surprised look across the table. "We're not as financially secure as everyone thinks," David admits. "Not even close." I get a peculiar sense of weightlessness. For years I assumed I was the only person who saw Jessica clearly. Others are starting to see beyond the curtain. "Finally, I hope you can assist her in developing stronger coping strategies." Lauren squeezes my hand across the table as the call concludes. For the first time in years, I am not alone in my interpretation of Jessica. And for the first time in my life, I am not expected to be the one to solve everything. That night, at 11:42 p.m., 3 tremendous strikes rattle the hinges on my apartment door. I know who it is before I look through the peephole. Jessica stands in the glaring hallway lighting, arms curled about herself. Her hair falls limp around her face, with no sign of makeup evident. She's wearing faded jeans and a basic cotton t-shirt, which I've never seen her wear before. I open the door but block it with my body. It's almost midnight. Please," she says quietly, her voice breaking. "Emily, I'm coming apart." David knows everything. For a brief moment, I recall the little child who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, seeking solace from her practical sister who was unafraid of the noise. But then, I recall the Thanksgiving table, her words filled with faux worry. "You should quit begging for money, it is humiliating." Nonetheless, I stand away. "Come inside." She runs by me, pacing the living room like a trapped beast. Credit card firms keep calling. I've blocked 8 different numbers, but they keep using new ones. And the BMW, her voice catches. They plan to repossess it next week. I offer her water in a basic glass tumbler. She looks at it momentarily, evidently hoping for wine. Mom and Dad are sad. She continues to accept the water but does not drink it. You are pulling the family apart with your vendetta. I sat on my couch, watching her performances with renewed clarity. If I lose everything, it's on you, she continues, her voice tightening. Is this what you want? To see me fail? I wait until her speech loses pace, until the theatrical pauses intended to inspire my reassurances become uncomfortable. When she eventually goes silent, I speak. Jessica, I've been helping you for 4 years. She sniffs and nods enthusiastically. And I'm really appreciative. That's why I can't understand why you'd stop now, when I need you the most. I let a measured pause pass between us. That's $58,200, divided equally. I have records of every payment. Her expression changes from vulnerable begging to protective rage in an instant. It wasn't really much. You are exaggerating to make me appear awful. Without saying a word, I open my laptop on the coffee table between us. The screen displays a spreadsheet, with each row representing a payment and each column representing a category. Dates, quantities, and account numbers. Notes chronicling her calls, her excuses, and her vow to pay me back next month this time. 4 years of financial devastation, painstakingly chronicled in the language I know best, numbers that do not lie. This is when she struggles with her words. You're doing this to make yourself appear good. You're constantly expected to be flawless. When I do not reply, she changes methods. You know I have expenditures, but you don't. Just the payments for the country club. She pauses, understanding how this sounds. You make so much more than I do, she attempts, her voice rising. You don't know what it's like to struggle. I make $185,000 every year, I admit softly. Her eyes widened slightly. She had definitely expecting far less. I reside in this one-bedroom flat and can afford to pay your expenses. The silence that follows seems like the first honest moment we've had in years. Her lips expands and shuts, looking for a different viewpoint. But we're sisters, she eventually admits, her voice quiet. Family helps family. I straighten up and approach to the door, opening it once more. You had 4 years, Jessica. I paid $58,200 of your loan. That is enough. She collects her purse, shoulders tight with rage. At the threshold she turns, her gaze narrowed. You are heartless, she hisses. You're going to regret this. Number. I maintain a steady stare with her. You should regret mistaking someone's kindness for responsibility. The door between us closes with a quiet click. 2 hours later, my mother phoned. I can detect strain in her voice. The attempt to keep calmness. Jessica claims you refuse to help. She's going through a lot right now. Did she tell you how much I had already helped her? I ask. She cites a few modest debts. Mom hedges. Mom, $58,200 over 4 years is not a tiny amount. Her sudden intake of breath conveys more than words could. Dad's voice abruptly replaces hers. $58,200? That cannot be correct. I can email you the documentation. I say this with my finger lingering above the submit button on an email I drafted some days ago. Why would you keep giving her money if she was, or not? To be quite honest, I finished for him. Because she is family. And you showed me that family always looks out for each other. The astonished quiet on the other end evokes both vindication and sadness. Later that night, texts started coming on my phone. Uncle Mark. Your sister is heartbroken. Where is your compassion? Aunt Linda. The family forgave. Period. This cold shoulder is below you. But there are others. Cousin James. It's about time someone stood up to her. Call if you need to chat. Lauren. I just heard the true story. We are all supporting you. Mom and Dad too. My phone pings with a notice from our extended family group chat. I prepare for another round of guilt and pressure, but instead receive a surprise message from David. Thank you all for your concerns. Jessica and I are working through some financial challenges that have arisen. We appreciate your understanding at this time. And Emily, thank you for your previous assistance. It was not recognized appropriately. The conventional family order, with Jessica at its brilliant center and me orbiting as the dependable, practical moon, has begun to crumble. Thanksgiving meal has become a dividing point in our family history. Before the truth, and after. My father phones back, his voice quiet. I've been reviewing the statements you sent. You've been around all these years. He pauses, unable to finish the notion that his golden kid was lying while his practical one was sacrificing. We should talk, he eventually adds. All of us. Maybe a Sunday dinner? Not yet, I respond, startling myself with the barrier. I need some time. Of course, he speaks swiftly. Too fast. Whatever you need. The phrases seem weird coming from him, or anybody in my family really. Previously, everything I needed was not a top priority. I snuggle up on my couch, covered in the quilt my grandmother sewed, which Jessica always thought was too old-fashioned for her taste. My place feels different tonight, not larger or more opulent, but more personal. For the first time in 4 years, the burden of secrecy and duty has been removed. The money that paid for Jessica's perfectly managed existence will now pay my honest one. On my coffee table, the spreadsheet still lights on my laptop screen. 4 years of payments, each one a brick in the wall that separates who I was and who I am becoming. I close the laptop, and the room becomes black save for the mild city light that filters through my blinds. Tomorrow will come more calls, more family members choosing sides, and more pressure to return to my usual position. But now, in the calm aftermath of finally telling the truth, I discover something unexpected. Peace. A week later, the language on David's message still glows ominously on my phone screen. Family gathering. Our residence. Tomorrow at 2. It's just your parents and a few others. This has to cease. I gaze at the words for a whole minute, my gut constricting. In the week since I faced Jessica in my apartment, the family has split into competing factions. Mother continues to call regularly with sad appeals. Father has fallen into uncommon stillness. Cousins send messages of support or condemnation based on whatever version of events they believe. What impresses me is David's unexpected involvement. Throughout his 5-year marriage to my sister, he has stayed delightfully removed from family strife. When I arrive to their house, which is noticeably smaller than Mother had led everyone to expect, David answers the door before I even knock. His usual easygoing demeanor is replaced by something harsher, more determined. Thank you for coming, he adds, his voice low. This will not be simple. The living room resembles a courthouse awaiting trial. Mother and father sit stiffly in identical seats. Uncle Mark sits at one end of the sofa, alongside Aunt Linda and grandmother, whose presence emphasizes the severity of the situation. Jessica is nowhere in sight. Where is Jessica? I begin. David interrupts, nodding toward the vacant chair that is clearly the main point. She will join us shortly. Please sit. Instead, I chose a corner of the sofa to keep my distance from the emotional blast zone. The air is fraught with unsaid accusations. Mother tries a faint grin. This is unneeded. Family conflicts should remain private. Not this one, David replies firmly, placing a hefty manila folder on the coffee table. Not anymore. The sound of a door closing resonates through the hall. Jessica walks in, her face free of makeup, wearing basic jeans and a beige pullover I've never seen before. No designer brands or statement jewelry. Her eyes are red-rimmed and dry. Sit down, Jessica, David says without looking at her. She sits on the edge of the vacant chair, hands firmly folded in her lap. David stands before us, shoulders square. I've asked you here because it's time for everyone to understand what's going on. He opens the folder. Jessica has accrued $104,000 in personal debt over the last few years. Mother gives a gasp. Father's head snapped up. That includes the $58,200 Emily has been paying in secret for 4 years, David continues. Jessica told me that the money came from her grandmother's trust fund. Grandmother's sudden intake of breath echoes around the room. I never set up such a thing. I know that now. David distributes the credit card statements on the table. These are regular purchases from Nordstrom, Saks, Neiman Marcus, designer clothing, jewelry, and handbags. Things to give the impression of accomplishment while we were silently drowning. Father leans forward, inspecting the documents with increasing incredulity. This does not sound like the daughter that we raised. Jessica murmurs. I needed those things. Everyone expected me to succeed. Mother reaches out to her. Is all this real, sweetheart? The question hangs in the air. It's the first time in 30 years that I've heard Mother doubt Jessica's version of events. Jessica's calm demeanor collapses. Tears run down her cheeks. I just wanted everyone to feel proud of me. By lying. By stealing from your sister. Aunt Linda's speech cuts like a sword. I was going to repay her, Jessica protests weakly. When? David asks. With what money? You haven't had a regular employment in 3 years. The silence that follows seems like a tangible burden. I witness my family accept the fact that they had been denying for years. David straightens. Things will change beginning today. We're selling our Range Rover. The Maldives trip has been cancelled. Jessica starts working 40 hours a week at Belinda's shop on Monday, and we begin financial counseling on Thursday. Mother's face pales. But that's too excessive. It's vital, David says. And very overdue. Father looks to me, his eyes clouded with something I've rarely seen. True remorse. We should have noticed it sooner. His voice has dropped to a near whisper. I apologize, Emily. The words I'd waited decades to hear arrived gently and without the gratification I expected. I nodded once, accepting but not absolved. For the first time in my life, I am in a family problem without being expected to solve it. I am neither savior nor villain, just present. The weird liberty of this moment sticks in my throat. The following 6 months will unfold in slow, deliberate steps. Family chatter changes when the complete tale emerges. Jessica works in retail after years of pleasure, arriving home with hurting feet and humiliated eyes. David manages their finances using spreadsheets that mirror my own scrupulous records. When Mother calls today, her voice has a new reluctance, as if she is learning to traverse foreign territory. Father inquires about my investing methods, listening with real curiosity. One Thursday morning in May, my phone vibrates with a banking message. Deposit. $600. A text message follows. It will take years, but I will repay you. M. I gaze at the TV, recalling the Thanksgiving meal when she openly accused me of begging. The bathroom room is when I finally discovered my boundaries. The spreadsheet tracks 4 years of quiet sacrifice. My fingers hover over the keyboard. A dozen replies arise and vanish in my imagination. In the end, I type only 2 words. Received. Thank you. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibly a door left slightly open in a wall that I had every right to construct. As I stand at the entrance of David and Jessica's scaled Tudor-style home, the weight of the pumpkin-scented candle helps to steady my hands. Through the leaded glass panels flanking the front entrance, I catch a glimpse of modest Thanksgiving decorations, in stark contrast to the elaborate displays at our parents' home last year. For a moment, I consider turning around and driving back to my flat to spend the vacation alone with a good book. But then I see my father through the glass. And our gazes connect. 1 year has changed more than simply my living environment. My apartment now has a beautiful sectional couch in deep burgundy, which replaced the shabby hand-me-down I had suffered for years. My home office now has a decent desk. Instead of the rickety card table where I had been managing my and Jessica's finances for half a decade. The $950 monthly contribution that used to slip into my sister's bottomless desires now goes into an investing account with a 14% return. Dad opens the door before I can knock. There she is, he says, but his voice lacks the booming tone I recall from childhood. Instead, I've never heard the word respect before. Happy Thanksgiving. I go inside, inhaling the fragrance of roasted turkey. My basic knee-length dress in rich forest green feels suitable for this occasion. Oh, you are right on time, Mom says, kissing my cheek without the usual perfunctory tone. Jessica is just ready to serve. The dining room table, set simply with white plates and cotton napkins, now has only 8 place settings, down from 20 last year. No glittering chandelier hangs overhead, just a simple pendant light that illuminates faces I now recognize as family rather than audience. Jessica appears from the kitchen in pants and a cream-colored pullover. No expensive labels are apparent, and no flashy jewelry catches the light. Her hair tied back into a modest ponytail, she carries a tray of sliced turkey with steady hands. Everything looks beautiful, I remark, and I mean it. Jessica's smile holds something new. Humility. Thank you for attending. When everyone is seated, David proposes a toast. All eyes are on him, but he nods to Jessica, who gently stands. She lifts her water glass. To a family that tells the truth, even if it hurts. My throat tightens abruptly. I raise my glass in acknowledgement, not yet ready for full reconciliation, but grateful for this honest new beginning. Throughout dinner, discussion flows naturally. Uncle Mark describes his latest heart operation without downplaying its significance. Lauren announces her promotion without downplaying its significance. Parents admit to struggling with retirement planning without pretending everything is wonderful. No one performs or competes. We just exist together in reality. Later, back in my flat, I open my laptop out of habit, but I no longer check the spreadsheet every day. Jessica has regularly delivered 12 payments, all on schedule. I scan through my phone, deleting previous desperate texts from her that I'd kept as proof. They are no longer essential to protect against gaslighting. The truth has surfaced and settled like dust after a rainstorm. Opening my journal, I write, $58,200. If she were a stranger, I would have stopped long ago. But she was my sister, or, at least, I assumed she was. I pause to contemplate what has changed. Jessica's monthly payments are more than simply financial reparation. They acknowledge that my limits matter and that my sacrifice is worthy of appreciation. My worth was never based on family acceptance, even if it took me 28 years to realize this. Boundaries are not harsh, they are about self-respect. I close the journal without feeling either triumph or remorse. Just clarification. Sometimes compassion entails knowing when to quit. You can't save someone who keeps sinking, especially if they're pulling you down. The question hangs in the nighttime air of my quiet apartment. If you were in the same scenario, what would you do? Cut them off as I did. Give them one more opportunity since they are family. Take legal action to retrieve what you've lost. Where do you draw the line between assisting and being exploited? At Christmas dinner, my sister was given a dream lake house worth $350,000. Then, they handed me a letter, I read it aloud, and her smile vanished. I'm Emily, and this story happened 2 years ago when I was 27. My sister Charlotte was 30 at the time, and she'd always been the golden child in our family. Everything came easy to her. Straight A's without studying, full scholarship to Northwestern, landed her dream marketing job right out of college, married her college sweetheart, Ethan, who came from money. Meanwhile, I struggled through community college, worked 3 jobs to pay for nursing school, and lived in a studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's Chinese restaurant. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't bitter about working hard. I actually loved nursing and felt proud of what I'd accomplished on my own. But the way my parents, William and Catherine, constantly compared us was exhausting. Every family dinner was filled with Charlotte's latest achievements, while my accomplishments got a polite nod at best. The real issue started 2 years before this Christmas Eve. Charlotte and Ethan had been trying to have kids for about 3 years with no success. They'd gone through fertility treatments, specialists, the whole 9 yards. It was heartbreaking to watch, and I genuinely felt terrible for them. But Charlotte being Charlotte, she couldn't just quietly deal with her struggles. She had to make everyone else's life revolve around her pain. She started showing up to family gatherings late or leaving early because seeing me with kids was too triggering. The thing is, I didn't even have kids yet. I was dating my boyfriend James seriously, and we talked about marriage and kids, but we weren't in any rush. But Charlotte seemed to think that just because I could potentially have children easily, I was somehow flaunting my fertility. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving 2 years ago. James and I announced our engagement, and instead of congratulations, Charlotte burst into tears and ran to the bathroom. My parents followed her, leaving James and me sitting alone at the dinner table with my aunt and uncle looking incredibly uncomfortable. When they came back, my mother suggested we keep our wedding planning low-key so as not to upset Charlotte further. I was frustrated, but tried to be understanding. We planned a small wedding the following summer, and Charlotte was my maid of honor despite her obvious reluctance. She showed up to my bachelorette party for exactly 1 hour, spent my wedding day sighing dramatically during photos, and gave a toast that was more about her own struggles than celebrating James and me. But I bit my tongue because family is family, right? Things got worse after James and I got married the following summer. Charlotte started making comments about how easy my life was, how I didn't understand real problems, and how I should be grateful for my natural advantages. She seemed to forget that I'd worked my ass off to get through nursing school. While she'd had everything handed to her, the final straw came the Christmas after we got married. 2 years before the Christmas Eve I'm telling you about, Charlotte announced she and Ethan were taking a break from trying to have kids, and were going to focus on travel and their careers instead. My parents threw them a celebration of life changes party and invited the whole extended family. It was bizarre, but I supported her decision. 3 weeks later, James and I found out I was pregnant. We were thrilled but nervous about telling my family given Charlotte's sensitivity about the topic. We decided to wait until I was past the first trimester to share the news. At 12 weeks, we gathered everyone for Sunday dinner and made our announcement. Charlotte's face went white, then red. Then she started screaming. She accused me of getting pregnant on purpose to rub it in her face. She said I was selfish and cruel and that I planned this to upstage her new life direction. My parents just sat there while she berated me, not saying a word in my defense. James finally spoke up and told Charlotte her reaction was completely inappropriate. She turned on him, saying he didn't understand what it was like to want something so desperately and watch other people get it without even trying. When James pointed out that we've been married for 7 months, and trying wasn't exactly shocking, Charlotte stormed out. But here's where it gets really messy. A week later, I had a miscarriage. It was devastating for James and me. We were both heartbroken and I took 2 weeks off work to recover physically and emotionally. Did Charlotte call to check on me, apologize for her reaction, offer any support at all? Nope. In fact, when my mom called to tell her what happened, Charlotte's response was that maybe this was the universe's way of teaching me not to take things for granted. I was done. Absolutely done with her and frankly pretty fed up with my parents for enabling her behavior. James and I spent the rest of that year focused on healing in our marriage with minimal contact with my family. But Charlotte wasn't finished. Over the following months, she started a social media campaign that was clearly directed at me, posting things like, "When people show you who they really are, believe them. And some people will never understand what real pain feels like." She'd make vague posts about family members who lack empathy and how some people get everything handed to them and still complain. What made it worse was that she'd post these things right after family events where we'd actually gotten along. Okay, we'd have a decent Sunday dinner, maybe even share a laugh or two, and then the next day there would be some passive-aggressive post about fake family members or people who pretend to care. It was like she couldn't stand having a normal moment with me without punishing me for it later. The social media thing got so bad that my friends started asking me about it. My college roommate Sarah called me one day and said, "Is everything okay with you and Charlotte? Because her Facebook posts are concerning." I had to explain the whole situation to Sarah, who was horrified. She couldn't believe that a 30-something professional was carrying on like a teenager on social media. But the absolute worst incident happened about 7 months after my miscarriage. James and I had gone to our friend's baby shower, a couple from nursing school who'd been trying for years and had just had their first baby through IVF. It was a beautiful, emotional celebration, and James and I were genuinely happy to be there supporting our friends. I posted one innocent photo from the shower, just me and James with the new parents, all of us smiling. I didn't even mention babies or pregnancy in the caption. Just so happy for these two amazing people. Within an hour, Charlotte had posted a long rant about people who flaunt their ability to be around babies and how some people use other people's joy to make themselves feel better about their own failures. The post didn't mention me by name, but anyone who knew our family situation would know exactly who she was talking about. Several of our relatives commented asking if everything was okay, and I ended up deleting my own post because I was so embarrassed by the drama Charlotte had stirred up. That night, I called my parents, furious. I told them about Charlotte's post and how humiliating it was to have her constantly monitoring my social media and turning everything into a public attack on me. My mother's response: "Well, honey, maybe you could be more sensitive about what you post. You know, Charlotte's struggling." That was the moment I realized my parents weren't just enabling Charlotte. They were actively participating in making me responsible for managing her emotions. It wasn't enough that I had to walk on eggshells around her in person. Now I was supposed to curate my entire social media presence around her feelings too. James was furious when I told him about the phone call. He said we should go no contact with my whole family until they started treating me with basic respect. Part of me wanted to do exactly that, but I couldn't bring myself to cut off my parents completely. They weren't malicious people. They were just so focused on keeping Charlotte from falling apart that they couldn't see how they were throwing me under the bus in the process. The situation got even more complicated when Charlotte started involving Ethan's family in her campaign against me. Ethan's parents, David and Margaret, were lovely people who had always been kind to me. But Charlotte started telling them her version of events, painting me as the cruel sister who deliberately got pregnant to hurt her and who then played the victim when I lost the baby. I found out about this when Margaret called me out of the blue one day. She was clearly uncomfortable, but she felt she needed to say something. "Emily, I hope you know that, David, and I don't believe what Charlotte's been saying about you. We've known you for years, and we know you're not the kind of person who would deliberately hurt someone you love. I was mortified that Charlotte had dragged Ethan's parents into our mess, but also grateful that Margaret had reached out. She told me that Charlotte had been calling them regularly, crying about how I'd turned the whole family against her and how I was manipulating our parents into taking my side. Margaret said it had gotten so bad that Ethan had finally had to ask Charlotte to stop involving his parents in our drama. That conversation with Margaret made me realize just how far Charlotte's victim narrative had spread. She wasn't just posting vague things on social media. She was actively telling people that I was some kind of mastermind who'd orchestrated a campaign against her. In her version of events, I was the villain who got pregnant on purpose to hurt her, then used my miscarriage to gain sympathy and turn everyone against her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Charlotte was accusing me of playing the victim while she spent every day posting about how mistreated she was by her cruel, insensitive family. She was claiming I was manipulative while she was literally manipulating every conversation and every family gathering to be about her pain and her needs. The worst part was watching my parents get more and more exhausted by it all. My father, who'd always been the peacekeeper in the family, started looking genuinely stressed every time Charlotte's name came up. My mother developed this nervous habit of immediately changing the subject whenever anyone mentioned babies, pregnancy, or anything that might set Charlotte off. Family gatherings became exercises in collective anxiety management. Everyone walking on eggshells, everyone monitoring their words, everyone responsible for Charlotte's emotional state except Charlotte herself. If she had a bad day, it became everyone's problem. If she was triggered by something, it was everyone's responsibility to fix it. I started dreading family events completely. Even when Charlotte was in a good mood, there was always this undercurrent of tension. This sense that one wrong word or topic could set off an explosion. James and I would drive home from these gatherings, emotionally exhausted, feeling like we just navigated a minefield for 3 hours. The breaking point for James came during Easter dinner about 7 months before the Christmas I'm telling you about. We were having a nice meal. Everyone getting along when my aunt mentioned that her daughter had just gotten engaged. It was innocent conversation, just family news. But I saw Charlotte's face change immediately. Instead of congratulating her cousin, Charlotte got very quiet and then excused herself from the table. She came back 10 minutes later with red eyes, clearly having been crying and the dinner shifted. Everyone started overcompensating, trying to cheer Charlotte up, asking if she was okay, making a big fuss over her. Meanwhile, my cousin's engagement, what should have been a happy family moment, got completely overshadowed by Charlotte's reaction to it. The bathroom, the entire mood of. My aunt looked embarrassed for bringing it up, and my cousin's good news got maybe 2 more minutes of conversation before everyone moved on to safer topics. James was quiet on the drive home, and when I asked him what was wrong, he exploded. "This is insane, Emily. One person's emotions are controlling your entire family. Everyone is so busy managing Charlotte's feelings that they can't even celebrate normal life events anymore." He was right, and I knew it. But I felt trapped. These were my parents, my family, and despite everything, I loved them. I didn't want to cut them off. But I also couldn't keep subjecting James and myself to this toxic dynamic. That's when we made the decision to pull back significantly from family events. We started declining about half the invitations, making excuses about work schedules and other commitments. When we did go, we'd arrive later and leave earlier, minimizing our exposure to the drama. My parents noticed, of course, and they weren't happy about it. They started making comments about how we were abandoning the family and how I was punishing everyone because of issues with Charlotte. They couldn't see that their own enabling behavior was driving us away. They just saw it as me being dramatic and holding grudges. The worst part was watching my parents get more and more desperate to fix things, which only made them enable Charlotte more. They called me with increasingly elaborate plans for family gatherings that would somehow magically make everyone get along. They'd suggest we all go to family therapy together or take a family vacation or have some kind of intervention. But none of their solutions involved Charlotte actually changing her behavior or taking involved everyone else responsibility for accommodating her emotions and finding new ways to avoid triggering her. It was like they thought they could manage their way out of the problem without ever addressing the root cause. So by the time the Christmas Eve I'm telling you about rolled around 2 years after my miscarriage, I was pretty much done with all of them. James and I had been trying to conceive again, but we decided not to share any news with my family until absolutely necessary. We were planning to spend Christmas morning together and then make a brief appearance at my parents' house for dinner. But then my mother called 3 days before Christmas Eve, practically begging us to come for their Christmas Eve gift exchange instead. The damage she'd caused. She said Charlotte had been having a really hard time lately, and it would mean the world to have everyone together. Against my better judgment, I agreed. So, Christmas Eve arrives, and James and I show up to my parents' house around 7 p.m. The living room is decorated to the nines. My mother had gone all out with garland, lights, and a massive tree. Charlotte and Ethan are already there, and Charlotte actually seems to be in a good mood for once. She hugs me when we arrive, which hasn't happened in over a year. We have dinner first, prime rib, my dad's specialty, and for once, conversation flows pretty normally. Charlotte asks about my work. I ask about her latest marketing campaign, and my parents seem relieved that we're getting along. Ethan's being more talkative than usual, and James is making an effort to keep things light. I start thinking maybe this Christmas won't be a disaster after all. After dinner, we move to the living room for gifts. My parents always go overboard, but this year seems especially extravagant. There are piles of wrapped presents under the tree, way more than usual. Okay, my dad says, rubbing his hands together with excitement. Catherine and I have some very special gifts this year, so we want to do things a little differently. We're going to save the big surprises for last. We start with the usual stuff. Sweaters, books, gift cards, a bottle of wine. Charlotte gets James an expensive bottle of scotch he'd mentioned liking, and I actually feel hopeful that maybe she's turning over a new leaf. James and I give everyone thoughtful gifts we'd picked out months earlier back when I was still trying to maintain family relationships. Then my parents exchange a look and my mother gets up to retrieve something from the kitchen. She comes back with a large envelope and hands it to Charlotte. "This is from both of us," my dad says, his voice thick with emotion. "We wanted to do something really special for you and Ethan this year." Charlotte opens the envelope and her eyes go wide. She pulls out what looks like a deed or some kind of official document. And Ethan leans over to read it with her. "Oh my God," Charlotte whispers, and then she starts crying. Happy tears, though she's smiling so wide I think her face might crack. "Ethan, they bought us the lake house. They bought us the cabin at Lake Geneva." For context, this lake house was a place we'd vacationed at a few times when Charlotte and I were kids. It belonged to some friends of my parents, and we'd always talked about how amazing it would be to own a place like that. It was this gorgeous 3-bedroom cabin right on the water with a private dock and everything. I'd looked it up online once out of curiosity and saw similar places going for around $350,000. Charlotte jumps up and hugs both my parents, still crying. Ethan shakes my dad's hand and thanking them over and over. It's clearly a massive, incredibly generous gift, like life-changing generous. "We know how much you two love it there," my mother says, wiping away her own tears. "And we thought it would be perfect for when you're ready to start your family." Kids love the lake. I'm sitting there trying to process this. $350,000 minimum for a vacation home. I mean, I knew my parents were comfortable. My dad had done well in commercial real estate and my mom had inherited some money from her parents, but this was on another level entirely. James squeezes my hand and I can tell he's thinking the same thing I am. We've been saving for 2 years to buy our first house, and we're still about $30,000 short of having enough for a decent down payment in our area. But I push down the jealousy and try to be happy for them. Charlotte's actually being gracious and sweet, thanking my parents repeatedly and talking about all the memories they'll make there. For a moment, it feels like old times before everything got so complicated and bitter. "All right," my dad says after the excitement dies down a bit. "Emily and James, we have something for you too as well." My mother reaches under the tree and pulls out a small envelope much smaller than Charlotte's. She hands it to me with a smile that seems a little forced now that I think about it. "Go ahead, honey. Open it," she encourages. I open the envelope expecting maybe a nice gift certificate or tickets to something. Instead I find a single folded piece of paper. It looks like it was torn from a legal pad and it's covered in my mother's handwriting. "Read it out loud," my dad suggests. "We want everyone to hear this." I unfold the paper and my heart starts racing as I read the first few lines to myself. This can't be what I think it is. I look up at my parents and they're both watching me expectantly. Charlotte and Ethan are also looking at me, waiting. I start, my voice catching slightly. "Are you sure you want me to read this out loud?" "Of course, sweetie," my mother says. "It's something we've been thinking about for a long time, and we want the whole family to hear it." I look at James, who nods encouragingly, and then back at the letter. My hands are actually shaking a little as I begin to read. "Dear Emily and James," I read, my voice growing stronger as I realize what this is. "We have watched you both work incredibly hard to build your life together, and we are so proud of the adults you've become. Emily, your dedication to your nursing career and your strength through difficult times has shown us what real character looks like. Charlotte's smile is still plastered on her face, but I can see confusion starting to creep in around her eyes. I continue reading. James, you have been the perfect partner for our daughter, supporting her dreams and standing by her side when others in this family failed to do so. Now Charlotte's smile is definitely wavering. Ethan looks uncomfortable and my parents are watching my face intently as I read their words back to them. We know you've been saving to buy your first home and we know it's been a struggle on your salaries, especially with student loans and the cost of living. We've watched you both make sacrifices and never once ask us for help, even when we know times were tight. My voice is getting stronger now because I'm starting to understand what this letter is, and a warm feeling is spreading through my chest. We also know, I continue, that you've had to deal with unfair treatment from certain family members, and that you've handled that situation with more grace and maturity than anyone should have too. You've been excluded from family events, had your achievements minimized, and even had your personal tragedy used against you. Charlotte's face has gone completely white now. The smile is gone, and she's staring at me like I'm reading her diary out loud, which in a way, I guess I am. So, I read on, my voice now clear and strong. We have decided to give you the wedding gift we never properly gave you, plus a little extra for everything you've had to endure. I pause here because the next line takes my breath away. We are giving you $45,000 toward the purchase of your first home, and we're also covering all of your remaining student loan debt, which we calculate to be approximately $35,000. James gasps beside me. I can barely believe what I'm reading, but I continue. This is not a loan. This is not something you need to pay back or feel guilty about. This is what we should have done when you got married. Instead of walking on eggshells around someone else's jealousy and insecurity, Charlotte makes a choking sound. Ethan reaches over and puts a hand on her arm, but she shakes him off. We hope this helps you start your family in your own home, surrounded by people who truly support and love you. We also hope this makes up in some small way for the times we failed to defend you when you needed us most. I look up from the letter and Charlotte is staring at me with an expression I've never seen before. It's like she's seeing me for the first time, or maybe seeing herself for the first time. Ethan looks like he wants to disappear into the couch cushions, but I'm not done reading yet. We love both our daughters, I continue. But we have realized that we have enabled behavior that has hurt our family and hurt you specifically. We hope that going forward, all of our family relationships can be based on mutual respect and genuine kindness rather than walking on eggshells around one person's emotions. The room is completely silent now, except for my voice. We know this letter might cause some drama, but we're tired of pretending that the way things have been is okay. It's not okay. You deserve better from all of us. I take a breath and read the final lines. Use this money to build the life you want with people who celebrate your happiness instead of resenting it. We love you both, and we're proud to be your parents, Mom and Dad. I fold the letter back up and look around the room. James has tears in his eyes and is squeezing my hand so tight it almost hurts. My parents are both watching Charlotte, who looks like she's been slapped. What the hell is this? Charlotte finally says, her voice low and dangerous. It's exactly what it sounds like, my father says calmly. We're giving Emily and James some financial help just like we gave you and Ethan the lake house. This isn't the same thing at all. Charlotte stands up, her voice getting louder. You just humiliated me in front of everyone. You made me look like some kind of monster. The letter didn't make you look like anything, my father says calmly. Your parents wrote down facts. Facts about how you've treated your sister and facts about how we've enabled it. Charlotte whirls around to face me. You planned this, didn't you? You somehow convinced them to do this. This is your revenge for me not kissing your ass when you got pregnant. Charlotte, Ethan says quietly. Maybe we should just... No. She snaps at him. They give us a house, but then they have to ruin it by making it all about Emily and her victim complex. Everything always has to be about poor Emily and how hard her life is. James stands up. That's enough. You're proving their point right now. Oh, shut up, James, Charlotte snarls. This doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, he says calmly. And I can see he's been thinking about this conversation for a while. I've watched you treat my wife like garbage for years. I've watched her cry after family dinners because of things you've said to her. I've watched her blame herself for your infertility problems because you made her feel like her existence was somehow offensive to you. I never said that. You didn't have to say it directly, I say, standing up as well. You said it with your actions. You said it when you screamed at me for getting pregnant. You said it when you told Mom that my miscarriage was the universe teaching me a lesson. You said it every time you made a social media post about family members who don't understand real pain. Charlotte's face crumples. That's not. I didn't mean. Yes, you did, my father says firmly. Charlotte, we love you. We will always love you. But the way you've treated Emily is unacceptable. And the way we've enabled it is unacceptable. You enabled it? Charlotte laughs bitterly. You just gave her almost $85,000 while calling me jealous and insecure in front of my husband. How is that enabling me? We gave you a house worth around $350,000, my mother points out. We're not exactly leaving you empty-handed here. That's not the point, Charlotte is full-on yelling now. The point is that you've decided I am the villain in this family, and now you're rewarding Emily for being the victim. No, I say, and my voice is steady now. They're not rewarding me for being a victim. They're acknowledging that I've worked hard and handled a difficult situation with maturity, something you've never been able to do. Difficult situation. Charlotte's voice goes up an octave. What difficult situation? You got everything you wanted. You got married. You got your nursing degree. You have a husband who worships you. What exactly has been so difficult about your life? The room goes quiet and I realize this is it. This is the moment I've been building toward for 2 years. The moment where I either back down and let Charlotte continue to rewrite history, or I stand up for myself once and for all. You want to know what's been difficult? I ask, my voice getting stronger. Watching my sister turn into someone I don't recognize because she can't handle other people being happy. Having to tiptoe around my own life accomplishments because they might trigger you. Planning my wedding around your emotional state. Being screamed at for getting pregnant, and then being told my miscarriage was some kind of cosmic justice. Charlotte opens her mouth to interrupt. But I keep going. Having my parents suggest I postpone my engagement announcement because it might upset you. Being asked to keep my wedding low-key so you wouldn't feel bad. Watching you give a maid of honor speech that was entirely about your own problems. Having you skip my bachelorette party because being around happy people was too triggering. I'm on a roll now and 2 years of suppressed frustration is pouring out. But you know what the most difficult part has been? I continue. Realizing that my big sister, the person I looked up to my whole life, had turned into someone who could only be happy if everyone around her was miserable. Someone who sees other people's joy as a personal attack. Someone who thinks the world owes her something because life didn't go exactly according to her plan. Charlotte is crying now. But I'm not done. I have been nothing but supportive of you. When you were struggling with fertility, I was there. When you and Ethan decided to take a break from trying, I supported that decision. When you needed space from family events, I understood. But none of that mattered because you had already decided that I was your enemy. You decided that my happiness somehow diminished yours. That's not true, Charlotte whispers. Yes, you did, Ethan says quietly. And everyone turns to look at him. He's been mostly quiet through this exchange, watching his wife with an expression that's part love, part exhaustion, part determination. I realize he's been waiting for this moment, maybe hoping for it. Charlotte, it is true. You know it's true, Ethan. Charlotte's voice breaks. No, Charlotte. I love you, but I'm not going to sit here and watch you do this anymore. Your sister lost a baby, and you told her mother it was the universe teaching her a lesson. Do you understand how cruel that is? Do you understand how that sounded? Charlotte covers her face with her hands. I was hurting. I was in pain. And I wasn't thinking clearly. You're always in pain, Ethan says, and his voice is gentle but firm. It's clear he's had this conversation with her before, probably many times. There's always some reason why you can't be happy for other people. There's always some excuse for why everyone else needs to manage their lives around your emotions. This is rich, Charlotte says, dropping her hands and glaring at Ethan. Now my own husband is ganging up on me too. I'm not ganging up on you. I'm telling you the truth. I've been telling you this truth for months, but you won't listen to me either. Oh, this is getting into territory I wasn't expecting. James and I exchange glances, and I can tell he's thinking the same thing I am. This is about more than just Charlotte's relationship with me. What's that supposed to mean? Charlotte demands. Ethan looks around the room, clearly uncomfortable with the audience, but he presses on. It means that this doesn't just affect your relationship with Emily. It affects our marriage too. It affects everything. You can't be genuinely happy about anything because you're too busy keeping score with everyone else. That's not fair, is it? Ethan asks. When's the last time you celebrated something good happening to someone else without finding a way to make it about what's wrong with our life? When's the last time you felt actual joy about anything that didn't involve someone else failing or struggling? Charlotte stares at him and I can see her trying to come up with an answer. The fact that she can't seem to find one tells us everything we need to know. My father clears his throat. Maybe we should all take a break. And no, Charlotte says, and her voice has changed. The fight has gone out of it, and she sounds exhausted. No, don't stop on my account. Clearly this is some kind of intervention that you all planned. We didn't plan anything, my mother says. We just decided we were tired of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Charlotte looks around the room at all of us, and for the first time in years, I see something other than anger or self-pity in her expression. I think it might be shame. So, what now? She asks. You've all told me what a terrible person I am. You've given me money while making sure I know it's because I'm such a burden. Jake's decided our marriage is broken because I'm not positive enough. What exactly do you want from me now? We want you to get help, my mother says simply. We want you to talk to someone about why other people's happiness feels like a threat to you. We want you to figure out how to be happy for your sister when good things happen to her. And we want you to apologize, my father adds. Not a fake apology where you excuse your behavior, but a real one where you acknowledge the hurt you've caused. Charlotte looks at me and for a moment I see the sister I used to know. The one who taught me how to braid friendship bracelets and always shared her Halloween candy with me. I'm sorry, she says, and her voice is so quiet I almost don't hear her. I'm sorry too, I say, because despite everything I am. I'm sorry it came to this. I'm sorry she's hurting. I'm sorry our family got so broken. No, Charlotte says, shaking her head. Don't apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. I know I did. I don't know how to stop. Ethan reaches over and takes her hand. You stop by getting help. You stop by doing the work to figure out why you think love is a limited resource, that someone else getting it means there's less for you. I don't know if I can, Charlotte admits. I don't know if I know how to be any other way anymore. Then learn, my mother says firmly. Because this version of you isn't sustainable. Not for your marriage, not for your family relationships, and not for your own happiness. Charlotte nods, tears streaming down her face. The lake house, she says suddenly. You should give the lake house to Emily too. She deserves it more than I do. Charlotte, no, I say immediately. That's not what this is about. This isn't about who deserves what more. This is about treating each other with kindness and respect. But I don't know how to do that anymore, she says. I don't remember how to be happy for other people. I don't remember how to not be angry all the time. Then we'll help you remember, I say, and I realize I mean it. But you have to want to change, you have to want to do better. Charlotte looks around the room again, and I can see her taking inventory of all the relationships she's damaged, all the bridges she's burned or is in the process of burning. I want to do better, she says finally. I want to be the kind of person who can be genuinely happy when my sister gets good news. I want to be the kind of wife who doesn't make everything about what's wrong with our life. I want to be the kind of daughter who doesn't make family gatherings a minefield. Then that's where we start, Ethan says, squeezing her hand. The room falls quiet for a moment, and I realize that this Christmas Eve has been more honest and raw than at any family gathering we've had in years, maybe ever. So, James says, breaking the silence, should we maybe open the rest of the presents? Everyone laughs, even Charlotte, and the tension in the room breaks just a little bit. We don't magically solve all our problems that night, of course. Charlotte and Ethan leave shortly after, with Charlotte promising to start looking for a therapist after the holidays. My parents, James and I stay up talking until well past midnight, working through years of built-up resentment and hurt feelings. But that letter changed everything. Not just because of the money, although I won't lie. Being debt-free and having a down payment for our house was life-changing. It changed everything because it was the first time my parents had acknowledged out loud that the family dynamic we'd all been living with wasn't working. It was the first time someone had called Charlotte's behavior what it was instead of making excuses for it. Most importantly, it was the first time I felt like my parents saw me clearly, not as Charlotte's little sister or as a consolation prize, but as their daughter who deserved to be supported and defended. Charlotte did start therapy and it's been a slow process, but she's been working on herself. She and Ethan are doing better, and she's been making genuine efforts to repair our relationship. She still has bad days and she still struggles with jealousy and resentment sometimes, but she's trying. She apologized properly a few months later, acknowledging specifically what she'd done wrong and how it had affected me. We're not back to where we were as kids, and we may never be. But we're building something new, something more honest and adult. And that letter, that beautiful, brutal letter that laid everything out in the open, was the beginning of that process. James and I bought our house 5 months later, and Charlotte was genuinely happy for us. She even helped us move. It was a small thing, but it meant the world to me. Sometimes the best gift isn't what's wrapped under the tree. Sometimes it's the truth delivered with love and the hope that things can get better.